Is 7 o'clock. Tonight is Wednesday, January 6th. This is the Waffle Zoning Board of Appeals tonight. The first hearing we have is case number 20-31. This is for property located at 2210 Route 1 special permit request. And the applicant has requested to withdraw without prejudice, meaning that they could come back at a future date with the new application. Could I have a motion to approve their withdrawal without prejudice?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Jane, second by Suzanne. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote on this. Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
Dave Anderson.
Aye.
And I'm John Lee, aye. Okay, next case we have is case number 20-35, Jeffrey Schnarr, 20 Winthrop Street. Variance request under section 9.4A of the zoning bylaws to allow the installation of a 24 by 48 single bay garage next to the house within 15 feet of the side yard setback in zoning district RB. Okay. Do you want to bring in the applicant, and we can all pull up the plans on our computer, and we'll get going as soon as the applicant comes in.
Amy, could you remind me of the applicant? Or can the applicant raise their hand and I'll promote you?
He's a green, Jeffrey Schnarr.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Schnarr, the way this works is you can present what you're trying to do with the garage at your property. We have the plans. Most of us have them in front of us or on the computer. So if you want to walk us through why
Thanks, honey.
you're here.
Do you want to unmute yourself, Jeff? Possibly?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It's a 24 by 48 garage, single bay. We're basically putting it at the end of the driveway where the edge of the house is.
Okay, and the reason why you're here is because it's not allowed under current
Right.
zoning. It should be 15 feet back from the property line, and in this case, it is as close as 4.83 feet back from the property line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the way it works with the Zoning Board of Appeals is you're appealing the denial of the building inspector to the zoning board, and you try to explain to us why you need to have this allowed when normally it's not allowed.
Right. Well, basically, the location of the house is close on that side of the property where we always have the driveway, and it would be too much. We don't have any space on the other side of the house to put that garage because we're planning on putting another addition on the other side. So this would be the best location for that garage. We've already got the driveway right there, and the entrance to the house is right at that location. And the way the angle is of the house to the property line, it's in an angle which helps drive that closer to the property line the further back we go. So that's it. Basically, that's the only location we can put it.
Okay. So usually you have to explain the hardship why it's not working, or, you know,
Well, right now we don't have a garage, okay? So we were looking for a place to put one. Been there a long time, and I felt it was time to try to put a garage where the existing driveway is and just extend it right there. It would be the cheapest option for us to do.
okay. We have some correspondence from the fire chief, and the fire chief talks about any life safety devices, if required, would be submitted to the fire department. We also have a letter from engineering. Have you seen these letters about the curb
Yes.
cut? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, board members, thoughts, concerns? Oh, we also have a letter from an abutter. And let's see, the abutter letter says, let's see, they're voicing we are voicing our opposition to the proposed garage addition at 20 Winthrop Street, Waffle, Mass. The proposed garage structure pushes the rear setback allowance 29.9 feet proposed versus 30 feet required. The proposed side setback is completely inappropriate. Side yard setback 4.83 feet proposed to 15 feet required. The entire length, 48 feet of this garage, would be in violation of the side setback allowance. The plans read that the garage structure will be 2 stories tall in part and 48 feet in length. It would loom over the neighboring lot. Allowing the structure would set a bad precedent and could adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. We believe that you should deny a variance under section 3.2 of the zoning bylaws. Submitted by Kevin Plunkett and Kathleen Watson. Okay. So that's what's been submitted into the record. Does anybody have anything, board members, any questions or comments for Mr. Schnarr? Go ahead.
Me? I have two questions. I'm reading the application form, and Mr. Schnarr, do you live there? The application form gives an address in Franklin, Mass.
No, I live there, 20 Winthrop Street.
Why does the application say the applicant lives at 456 Rear West Central Street in Franklin, Mass?
No, that's our office.
Well, that's what the application says. So that may need to be cleaned up. And my other question is, from looking at the plans, it certainly looks like it could go on the Dudley Street side of the house.
Yeah, but we're going to use that property for our backyard, and it just wouldn't work coming in, relocating. It would just be too much of a cost impact to do that, to come on that side.
And that's your final answer on that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's our backyard.
I thought he said he was putting an addition on the Dudley Street side, but.
No. Yeah, I am on that corner, yes. Yep, it's on that drawing.
So a structure can go on the Dudley Street side?
Yeah, but it wasn't going, that was going to be a sunroom that we're putting in.
Okay, it's your call. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other board members with questions on this?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
What's the height of the garage?
It's 2 stories, so
But the house is 1 story?
yeah, single story, 26 feet. He has the architect, yes. 26 feet, 6 inches to the top.
And the height of the existing house?
The allowed height is 15 feet.
Okay.
And then the house is, it's like 12 feet high, top of peak.
So, you know,
Did you all get that calc? Did you all get that calc? It's twice the size.
right, so
Okay.
one of the things, you know, the zoning board has spent a lot of time lately on garages for people, and we have not granted relief for any garages in my time on the zoning board. So I think that's, you know, I'm not seeing a hardship. It's nice to have a garage, but doesn't mean that you're exempt from the zoning bylaws or you get relief for the zoning bylaws because it's something that you want to have. You know, that's the way. That's why we're here, and that's why you're here tonight. So, any other board members have questions or comments?
Don?
Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
Yeah. I would like to add also that the one of the criteria is that it would not change the character of the neighborhood. And if you've got a neighborhood that have single story, one story, or small capes or whatever, and this man's going to put up a garage twice the height of his home, to me, that does change the character of the neighborhood, and I'd have a hard time supporting this, quite frankly.
Okay. Let's see. Ashley, are there any neighbors or anybody else here to comment on this?
So if you've heard a comment on this case, if you could please raise your hand, and then I will promote you. There are 32 attendees, but I'm not seeing any hands raised, and I don't see any comments in the chat.
Okay, so at this point, Mr. Schnarr, it's up to you. If you want to close the hearing, you can close the hearing tonight, and then the zoning board considers it and can vote on it, or you can continue if you feel there's other information that you need to provide to the zoning board. At this time, do you want to close the hearing?
Yeah, I think that's about it. What, you've got the plan, so unless you have any other further questions.
Board members, any further questions? Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Schnarr, the first thing we're going to do is we vote to close the hearing, and
Okay.
So you can stay on for that. And board members, are you going to be ready to vote on this evening, or do you want to? I know everybody's reviewed this before the meeting. Okay. So this is just to close the hearing. Could I have a motion to close the hearing for the for 20 Winthrop Street variance?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Suzanne, second by Jane. And again, this is just to close the hearing. Any further discussion on closing? Okay, has to be a roll call vote for this. Jane Coffey,
Yes.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
Dave Anderson,
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
I'm John Lee, aye. Okay, and voting on this will be the 5 members who just voted to close the hearing. So we can discuss it, but I at least for me, it's way too close, too big for the neighborhood, and I will not be supporting this. So could I have a motion? And this is made in the affirmative, so it's a motion to approve the garage at 20 Winthrop Street for a variance as shown in the plans.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Suzanne.
Second.
Thank you, Jane. Second by Jane. Any further discussion? And this is for approval. So if you're in favor, you'll vote aye. If you're opposed, you'll vote no. So again, roll call vote. Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Okay, Suzanne Murphy.
Nay.
Drew
Wait a
Delaney.
minute. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. Don?
you
Yeah,
know,
I made a mistake.
okay, we're going to go forward with the, that's with a roll call vote. So I could have a motion to reconsider afterwards, but let's just go through the roll call vote. Okay, Suzanne Murphy, again.
Nay.
Okay, Drew Delaney,
No.
Dave Anderson,
No.
and I'm John Lee, no. Okay, so it doesn't carry. Jane, I don't see a need to reconsider.
Okay.
But for the record, it would be 1 in favor, 4 opposed, and Mr. Schnarr, you can get a copy of the decision at Town Hall. It usually takes about a week or so to get it done. You can see, Amy, what's your time frame on that, do you think?
Monday. I'll have it. I mean, Bob has to approve it, but he'll have it in his inbox by tomorrow or Friday. So usually by Monday, I would think that it would be ready to go.
Okay, and that will be filed with the town clerk. Okay, I'm sorry it didn't work out for you, Mr. Schnarr.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for your time.
Okay, good night.
Night.
Okay, the next, if board members, just please put yourself on mute so we don't get the static. The next case we have is case number 0320 55 SS LLC. This is for 51, 53, 55 Summer Street, comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Laws 40B, section 20 to 23. And this is for the construction of 240 rental units and 60 ownership units. This was continued from the last day of November, and we can start bringing in the applicant and people to discuss this case.
Sorry, I'm going through trying to find people. So I've added Amy Quessel, David Hale, Leslie French. David, could you let me know who else from your team I should promote?
Sure.
Oh, I see Patrick and Ken's hands raised, so I'll promote them. Thanks.
Yeah, Katie Enright, Patrick Bogle, Jeremy Baldwin, Phil Mackey, and Ken Cram. And Mark Brooks.
Okay, I think that's the whole entourage.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Hale and your team. We also have with us tonight Amy Quessel from Town Council, who's been working with the zoning board and with the applicant on this entire application. So at this point, Mr. Hale, if you would like, I can turn it over to you to let you talk about the updates and changes that you've made since our last meeting, which was on November 30th.
Okay, well, I think since November 30th, we have been working diligently with your peer review and town department heads, and we've made some significant changes to the plan. And we've done some work on the intersection. And without me talking a lot, I think I'll just turn it over to Katie Enright to describe the changes in the plan, and then Ken Cram can talk about the work that we've done with peer review and with the town regarding the triangle intersection.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm here tonight, and if Patrick is able to show the plan, or Leslie, actually. Sorry, Leslie, you're going to show the plan, right? And move around for me. There we go. Perfect. All right. So what we did was kind kind of consolidated into one sheet so we could more easily show the board and update the team on some of the different changes that we've made to the plan since we appeared before you last. And what we've done is this plan is just kind of a more simplistic form that just points to the kind of the areas of the plan that have changed in red that I'm going to describe to you in a little bit more detail as we kind of move around the plan. So starting with really what we feel is the most important change is that we've acquired an easement from 87 Summer Street. And Leslie's pointing to that area right now to allow for secondary access to the site for fire and emergency only. And also to serve as an area that we can loop the water to get essentially the two connections to the water main in Summer Street as far apart as we possibly can, based on some of the information that we received from the water department and also the fire department. So we're able to use this easement for both access and utilities. And you can see the easement itself is 32 feet wide and the proposed emergency access is 20 feet wide. If we zoom down in that area, there is a driveway there now, and we will be moving the driveway over to accommodate the driveway access to that single family home. So this is something that's certainly very important to the project. We have this gated at both ends, so at the end of the cul-de-sac and also at Summer Street. And so that will be gated and again used only for emergency access. This was able to, with this emergency access, we were able to reconfigure the entrance to the project. So Leslie, if you can pan kind of, excuse me, back to the entrance of roadway A. What we've done is with the secondary access, we've been able to remove the boulevard that we had previously proposed in the road along roadway A to help us meet that fire criteria of having kind of two ways of travel in and out of the site. We've also been able to shrink the pavement to 26 feet in width. In this area, we've also really opened up the radii at the beginning of the project to allow for ease of fire truck movement. So we've been working significantly with the largest fire truck in the town of Walpole to make sure that the movements meet the requirements of the fire department and peer review and make those movements and access as easy as possible for your fire department. So that entryway has been opened up. As you come in, you'll see we have it labeled with an arrow as one way around those buildings 1 through 5. So that's a new thing that's been added to the plan. Just to confirm, we had always anticipated it to be one way so that cars will be able to come in. It would not take that first left in front of building 1. It would be signed so that you would move past those units and come in your building 5 and loop around and loop back out to Summer Street. As you come into the site, you'll see that roadway B has been relayed out. So instead of the T turnaround that we had here previously, we have consolidated the 3 buildings into 2 buildings. So now we have 6 units in each of those structures, and the driveway is very short. It only accesses those 12 units, and the driveway itself is less than 150 feet long. As you move into the site a little bit further, you can see we've then, there's no red text there, but essentially since across that first wetland crossing, we've then reduced the pavement to from 26 to 24 feet in width. Then as we move through the rental townhouses, each of these intersections we didn't point out, but all of our intersections have been upgraded. The radiuses have been increased and the widths have been increased wherever necessary to make sure that the fire truck has clear path of travel on their side of the road. So you can see those, if we were to overlay those, you'll see how much greater that each of these intersections has been created to make sure that path of travel is clear. We've also, with the multifamily buildings, one of the comments that we had heard previously from fire is just a better clear access way to the multifamily building entrances. So we've reconfigured the parking at both multifamily buildings to allow for a perfectly clear area, and we've put the handicap spaces on both sides of those striped areas so that there's large striped areas in front of each of those doors, which allows for clear passage and clear visibility right to the doors of the multifamily building. You'll see there's 3 doors from the previous plan on building 1, and then we've added a 4th door at the end of building 1, the L-shaped building. What we've added here is we've been working with the fire department on access. Previously, we only had the access from the exterior at the other end of the building where we had the garage opening. The concern was heard by our team to look at ways that we could also, although we met the requirements per se of the fire department, make it easier for them to be able to access that basement area, the garage area within the L-shaped building, and do what we could to provide additional access on the other side of the L. So what you'll see here today is we have proposed a stairwell that goes down to a door that would be located at the garage level. The stairwell is open so that a fire personnel could go down into the stairwell, open the doors at the bottom of the stairwell. This will not be used for anything but emergency access. And would be able to say if there was something blocking the garage on the other end of the building, or if there was something specifically on this end of the building, that would be easier for them to get a hose and or personnel to, that they have that access at this end of the L to come down into the stairwell and access that garage level. What we've also done, Leslie's doing good, move back to the other, is provide a staging area adjacent to that stairwell. So we've basically created a paved area that's approximately 16 feet wide. You can see we've striped off 2 of the parking spaces in front of that area, which would allow for, an ambulance or a smaller vehicle or equipment to be staged in that paved area, and it's adjacent to that end of the building. So hoses could be brought in, equipment could be brought in, and there's essentially a secondary clear passage at that end of the building. So we now have 2, 3, 4, 5 different accesses to that L-shaped building. As we move around to the other side, we have, show overhead view, doors open. Right. As we move over to the other side to the linear building, this building was a little bit different. There wasn't as much concern because there's not that L and that bend in the building. But still what we looked at was trying to do something that would be helpful at the other end of the building that would kind of work with existing grades and work with the structure of the building. So on this building, what we've provided is this access way, which is similar to the staging area on the other building, so that there's a clear passage. There's 2 front doors on this building that go down to the garage entry at the end of the building. And now there'll be an area to bring equipment in and stage on the other end of the building over a paved access that would be plowed and kept clear of snow, again, to aid fire personnel and emergency personnel when showing up to deal with an emergency at building 2 or the linear shaped building. As we move around to...
So, hey, Katie?
Yeah?
Before we move off that, going back to the L-shaped building, I think it's important to point out that the doors open 180 degrees, and so that whole, and they open out, so that whole opening will be unobstructed. Just thought it was important to point that out.
Thank you, David.
So it's also important to point out that on the linear building, it's more difficult to do that with an open air configuration because of grades and drainage. And Katie, if you would explain that.
Yeah, of course. So in looking at the other side of the building, to create an open air, one of the things Patrick and I noticed right away, and speaking of an open air staircase, is what's going to happen with the water that ends up in that staircase, right? So it rains, the water goes down the stairs and sits in an area at the bottom. So we need to be able to drain that area, and to drain that area and get it into a drainage area, it's almost impossible. We'd have to would have to carry a drain and a pipe hundreds of feet to get the water out of essentially this bottom area, because the grade next to the building here is a lot higher, and we have that drainage area right there also between the townhomes and the linear building. So here the solution was to provide just the staging area and not provide that open air stairwell on this end of the building.
But we do want to point out that if it's important to the fire department and they would like a stair that's covered so the rain can't get in it, we're willing to provide that option as well. So the point is, we'll work with the fire department to design something that is buildable, can be maintained, and that works for everyone.
Correct. So yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, essentially it would be a very similar stairwell. It would just be one that you would access through a door on the exterior of the building, and it would be fully enclosed. So it would essentially be part of the building and hang off the side of the building. That would allow us to be able to, essentially keep the rainwater out of that lower elevation and be able to capture just the roof water that comes off that end of the building. So that's something we can certainly talk about doing if the fire department feels that would be beneficial to fire safety for the linear building as we move forward. What we've also done as you move towards the single family homes where the two cul-de-sacs are, we've been working back and forth with peer review and with fire. When we started the project, fire was adamant that we not have cul-de-sac islands. Working through your peer review engineer, we came up with kind of a middle ground solution. So this island is actually smaller than the one we previously proposed. There's 30-foot clear path around this island. So it's a wider paved area around the island, but it's our understanding that the fire department can support an island of this size. And we would basically put up no parking signs along the island, certainly also to make sure that the fire department had a clear path through the project. So these are certainly some exciting new changes. We hope that the inclusion of the secondary access, some of the work we've done to increase fire access and safety, specifically around the multifamily buildings, is beneficial. We understand that there's still a little bit of concern related to visitor parking, especially in and around the multifamily, not the multifamily buildings, but the townhome buildings and the single family houses. And we're exploring options, and we'll continue to work with the fire department, certainly to provide additional visitor parking where the fire department feels it's necessary, and add those spaces, whether they be parallel along the proposed driveways or within small lots to make sure that they're comfortable with the amount of parking that's provided at each of these structures. And with that, the next part of the presentation really has to do with some of the offsite improvements. So I'm gonna switch it over to Ken, who is going to talk about the next part.
Yes, good evening. Ken Cram from Bayside Engineering. We were asked to provide plans that could improve the triangle intersections. And we developed a series of plans and provided them to Sean at Tetra Tech for review and internally as well. We looked at options that we could, try to save as much as the triangle as we could, to completely replacing it. And we have 3 plans to show you. Leslie, can we show the first one? Excuse me. This is kind of like a one-way triangular shaped roundabout where we basically round the edges and of the triangle itself and have one-way flow. Theoretically, this sounds like it would work, but you ended up with still some long queues coming from Water Street, particularly during the evening peak hour, because all the traffic, which currently goes from Water Street to Neponset Street to Summer Street in the evening, now has to make a zigzag, so to speak, and develop some long queues. So we discarded that option. We then looked at a roundabout option. This is the roundabout option that works. It has a good level of service overall, level service C. Just remember, back like you were in high school, A again being good, F being bad. So we're in the middle of level service C, but we have some operational issues with this concept because of the, we have the room to do it, but there are a couple of driveways that are significantly impacted, and we could not solve those driveway problems. So we went to the next option. We said, let's look at reconfiguration and a signal. And what we did was, next option, please. We kind of like straightened out Summer Street and brought it straight down to Washington Street and sort of turned Water Street right and made it aligned with Washington Street. We, modified the Washington Street extension approaches and the Neponset Street approaches there. North is to the right, so that would be to the west. Those two streets are minor volume streets, and put a traffic signal in. This got good levels of service, overall level of service B operations. It solved our sidewalk issue because we brought a brand new sidewalk from the existing sidewalk on Summer Street right down to the intersection and continued it to the south to meet up with the existing sidewalk at Washington Street Extension. And it provides a number of benefits: good level of service, good, the queues are managed. We have adequate stacking as shown here, but particularly in safety, the pedestrian crossings would be part of the traffic signal itself. What we would do is make them an activated system where if someone wants to cross either the Water Street side or the Summer Street side, they would push the button and the light would stop all the traffic and it would let everyone cross safely. So that could get students down to the Boyden School, back and forth, plus regular walkers. Plus, what it does is we didn't figure the green space calculation for this, but it's a sizable area that is now created. That it's a triangular shaped parcel there where Leslie is circling, and it we could take all the amenities there in the existing triangle and relocate them, and we can work with the town to landscape it accordingly. We shared all these options with members of the department heads and the police and fire department a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of endorsement and enthusiasm for this particular option, and I think that's everything I had. So this is the option that we would recommend.
Yeah, and if I could add, this is Sean Reardon from Tetra Tech. Just want to make sure everybody understands the amount of work that went into all these different options. None of the options that Ken came up with was just like sort of a pass. Everyone was thoughtful. Everything was well researched. So we have a lot of confidence in where we ended up. And with the meeting with all the department heads and the police and fire departments, the position was unanimous that they all preferred this. The police department in particular liked it because for the event day traffic, it's a lot easier for them to manage it with just one detail officer, where now it takes them 3. A roundabout would have taken them at least 3 to manage that kind of traffic. This just simplifies a lot of things. And we actually net out quite a bit of additional green area over the existing condition with this option too. So really no dissent among the various viewpoints that were there. We all liked it, and we all liked it for different reasons.
And Chair Lee.
Okay, Okay, Mr. Reardon, thank you for your comments. Mr. Hale, do you have anything else before I open this up to zoning board members?
No, I think that undertaking this work in partnership with the town would be good for everyone.
Okay, very good. So, board members, do you have any questions or comments on either the revised plans that were shown? I know I've got a few questions on that, and also for the South Waffle Square.
Charlie?
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that I've asked for fire and police and sewer and water to be here tonight. So if you have any specific questions for them, they are available. And also, I could just add, we've reviewed kind of a preliminary set of plans, and there are still some outstanding issues. The goal of tonight, I think, is really to get feedback from the board on these changes and also to hear from the public. And then hopefully all of that feedback will go into the next set, which will be formally submitted. And when that set is formally submitted, the department heads will be able to respond formally in comments to you. But we're kind of at a sketch phase right now. Like this is not something that's been approved and decided on by all of the departments. This is part of the process and why we're having a public hearing to discuss it.
Right, but to be clear on this, this set of plans that we're looking at, that is what's been filed with the zoning board, and that's what everybody's working off of at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, but we're working off of really 2 sheets, which is a very kind of high level look at things. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we're hoping to get feedback from you and from the public.
Okay, I think we can do that. I think we can definitely do that tonight. Get feedback from both the board members and the public, which we will be opening it up to after the board members have their comments. Okay, board members, does anybody have questions or comments on this?
Hi, John, this is Bob. I had a question regarding the discussion of the traffic options that the roundabout discussion mentioned impacts to driveways and things. And I was just curious if we could confirm that the preferred alternative with the signal would not either impact existing driveways to existing residents in the area or require any sort of, not necessarily a taking per se, but, expansion of the existing ways such that it would impact existing property lines and that sort of thing.
And do you want to handle that, David, or do you want me to take it, or? You can take it. All right. So the answer is, you can see this plan actually shows the driveways connected, Bob.
Yep.
The key thing is where they connect on the intersection. So it's not so much that you can't physically connect them, it's that when you have the roundabout, you're connecting them into the roundabout or past the entry point. So it's a matter of where you connect them, not that you can't physically make the grades work or something like that. It's the fact that it's close to the functioning part of the intersection. The beautiful thing about the T is that the T removes it from all those driveways that are problematic. And as far as the right-of-way issue, it actually fixes an existing right-of-way issue where the building at 1885, which is the one that the cursor is over right now, actually there's an existing sidewalk that encroaches on the property there. This new geometry allows us to get rid of that sidewalk and deal with that encroachment altogether. And it also helps us make that driveway that's there, it's a little bit funky, a little bit better as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, any other board members have questions or comments?
John, I do, please.
Yep, go ahead. Go ahead, Suzanne.
I had a question about the guest parking. As she was speaking, I'm not seeing any guest parking, or that maybe they can show me, for the townhouses, especially by road B, 33, 32, 31, there's numbers on it, and it's at a curve. And I would assume the fire department doesn't want anybody parking in the road. And I just don't see where people are parking in those sections.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Park.
So what we're looking at doing, so that's one of the areas. Leslie, if you can zoom down into roadway B a little bit. So each of these townhomes has a garage and a driveway that allows for cars to be parked in the driveways also. But one of the areas that we'll look at with the fire department is to potentially continue the row of parallel parking from the mail house where it says 100-foot wetland buffer, and continue those down a little bit further. So there could be some potentially, if that's a preferred option by the fire department, some additional visitor spaces there. Or we could provide a couple certainly at the end of driveway B also. But if that's one of the concerns, we can certainly provide some visitor parking there.
Well, that's the easy building. It's the ones further down that look like it's going to be pretty hard to me to find something.
No, I mean, here too, there's areas between the buildings that we could provide some parallel parking as you get up into the area around 25 to 28, 29, 32. 33 to 38, we're right adjacent to the excess parking at the clubhouse and the multifamily buildings also. So if there's a need for parking in those buildings, but the buildings, the 6 buildings that are kind of in the middle there between roadway A and the loop where roadway C loops, we could provide again some parallel parking along that roadway also to allow for very little pavement to be added to the project. And add some of those additional parking spaces that would be outside of the travel path.
Okay. I mean, I'm seeing like 25, 30 units there. I mean, you talked about maybe 5 spots that I could see.
Yes. So per the parking requirements, I mean, right now.
Where is 44 going to put their guests?
Right, so 44 has 2 parking spaces there today.
Okay, so when they have Thanksgiving, where are they going?
Well, so I mean, just like anywhere else in any other neighborhood. So people are going to have to park and walk. So people would probably walk down from driveway B. There might be 3 or 4 spaces across the road from 43 through 46 along that roadway where we could do some parallel spaces. There's probably room for 4, 5, 6 spaces along that area, and then it'd be directed to park down in the multifamily area potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Has Cliff commented on what might be an appropriate number of visitors? I admittedly, I'm struggling a little bit with this. I don't know what number to provide, and it's hard for me to give guidance to these guys, particularly given the fact that with the whole stadium parking issue, having extra spaces laying out that don't necessarily belong to everybody seems a bit perilous. So do we have any sort of guidance as to what we think is an appropriate number that strikes a good balance?
So the plan has changed pretty substantially since Cliff's last review, but I do think if he could help with some guidance on that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important because I think kids are going to be riding their bikes around these. I would assume. I mean, if I lived there, I'd be riding my bike around. So I'm just looking for spots. That's all. And you have a lot of wetlands to deal with, and you can't pave that. And I mean, I'm not looking to be a pain in the neck. I'm just looking for some spots. If I want to go visit my Grammy, I want to know where I'm parking.
Yeah, and I think, Suzanne, and they have to be, to your point, they have to be spaced in a way that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have enough parking.
So people know, right?
Yeah.
No, and we'd be happy to, if Cliff has some direction for that, or Sean, you have some direction for that, and we feel comfortable with the amount of parking that we have here based on the requirements, but certainly we have room to provide additional visitor parking. If both the board, the fire department, and Cliff, feel a certain number is necessary, certainly we don't want to, we could show you a plan that fits as many as possible.
No, we don't want to do that.
And we don't want to do that. Like you said, Sean, there's got to be a happy balance. So be happy to look at that with some feedback.
And Suzanne, I do think there's plenty of opportunity to accomplish that. It's just a matter of what that number is. The nice thing is once you've got the roadways in, it's kind of easy to put parking in here and there.
Yeah.
So parking usually isn't that much of a challenge. It's really about what's the right number and what's the right place to put them.
Yep.
So we'll come back with a plan with some additional visitor parking. One thing to keep in mind is that, this one sheet plan makes this parcel look small. It's not. It's big, and these roadways are long, and I think there'll be plenty of space for adequate visitor parking. So we'll work hard to make it acceptable.
Well, I understand your square footage is a lot, but you have a lot of wetlands. You have a lot of not usable property too. That we have to, we're on a tightrope kind of. My other question I have two other questions. One of them is, how is the mail system and the Amazon and all that going to operate?
So we have two mail areas. One at the entrance on the right, which you can see right now, which will service the rental townhomes, and then one that will service the ownership units. Each multifamily building will have mail delivered to the building itself, and will have a package room. And the clubhouse will also have a package room, so that the rental townhome folks can have packages delivered to the clubhouse.
And my third thing and final is the skyscraper buildings, building 2. Am I not seeing any green space around the area that's usable for the kids that live there?
So and Katie can answer
Yeah,
this.
David, let me, again, as David stated, it's so hard to understand how large these green spaces really are, and looking at a plan at such a small scale. So right for building 2, this is a huge green space here in this triangular area next to the clubhouse and the garden and the pool. This is the playground here where it says play.
So that where it says added drainage area, that drainage
is all green also. This is
underground.
Mm-hmm. And this area is all flat behind these townhomes too, adjacent to building 2. So building 2 is actually across the street from a fairly large field, a playground, the garden area, the pool, and the clubhouse. And then, as David stated, where it says added drainage area, that drainage area is under grass. So this is all green space here at the end of building 2.
And it's not sloped, it's flat, like they could play ball on it?
Yep, it's flat.
Why is it considered a drainage area then?
Because we're going to put underground storage underneath there.
Okay.
So we're taking stormwater and we're going to put it in an infiltration system under the ground so that area is usable at the surface.
It's really hard to judge. I really wished we had some form of 3D type of thing, because it really is kind of hard to judge. And you guys have even said it yourself many times tonight, it's hard to judge.
A 3D model was requested by Cliff.
Yeah, it really would have been helpful, I think. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, other board members? Anybody? Okay, I've got a couple questions on this part right here. And like Suzanne, I definitely had concerns about the additional parking. Seems like we're relying on the garages for the cars, and with the rental units, is there any way that you can enforce people to use their garages for their cars? Because clearly what we're stating in this hearing is, well, cars will go into the garage, but I know that whenever I've had a garage, the car didn't spend a lot of time in there. So, Mr. Hale, is that something that you'd be looking to enforce if it was a condition that garages must be used for cars?
I think, David, if I may, I think that what's going to be enforced is that people can't use the road for parking. It's going to be well signed and it's going to be enforced. So people will have the choice of using their garage or parking probably far away from where they live, as they're not going to be able to use the roadway in front of their house for parking. So they'll have a choice. And that's kind of be what will force them to do that. I don't think you can force anybody to park in their garage. Certainly.
I don't think you can force anybody not to park on the road, particularly for short amounts of time. And that's where the problems are going to come. That there's going to be parking on these roads if they don't have driveway area or garage area, and it's going to become a safety.
Understood. And most of these units have enough parking so that we actually, in most of the single family homes and the townhomes, that we don't actually need spaces additional to that, because we're essentially doubled up. Sean, do you agree on all the single families? We're doubled the amount of spaces that are required by the bylaw because we have 2 in and 2 out.
I don't think the single family homes, anything with a 2-car garage and a double
Driveway.
I'm not terribly concerned about. The smaller units with single car garages, I think someone said I've got a 3-car shed. I have a 2-car garage and 2 cars in the driveway and nothing in the shed, nothing in the garage, just bikes and lawnmower.
Right.
So I think we got to think a little bit about that and make sure we have a strategy. And to John's point, I mean, it is a rental unit, so it is owned by the facility. David, is that something that you think is even doable or reasonable to?
I think Katie stated a practical solution and one that's accepted in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think having, trying to evict somebody because they use their garage for storage is not practical. I could say it is just to get through, but that's not me. So I think Katie's answer was the correct answer.
I think also, Sean, just to also kind of clarify that more, I know in some rental situations or even condominium situations, I mean, you can tell someone they can't have more than 2 cars or something to that effect, so that, there's not 4 cars per family.
Yeah.
I think that's as complex as it can get.
How many bedrooms are the townhomes?
Half are 2-bedroom and half are 3-bedroom.
And they all have a 1-car garage?
Correct.
Okay.
So technically they do meet the zoning requirement, and we will add additional visitor spaces.
Okay, and I think Mr. Hale has just made the point that it meets the zoning requirement. You'll add additional spaces. Those details can be worked out. But
yes,
what you're hearing from the zoning board right now is we're concerned about the safety aspect of this when it comes to cars parking on the roadway. So Suzanne raised that question. I'm raising that same point. The other question I have is the access, first off, the change at the entrance to the site. Can we go up there? It's no longer the boulevard, the double road going in. Sean, is this better, safer? What's your thoughts on this?
Definitely better for a lot of reasons. I thought the boulevard was reactive to, in concept, it's kind of nice sometimes to think about it that way, but in this case, it was more of a reaction to not having another means of access. So what the nice thing about a single lane is, A, you've got much less pavement, and B, the whole lane is open to accommodate traffic. So you have a boulevard, you have actually 2 smaller lanes of travel, which means it's difficult if someone is pulled over, it might be a little bit tighter to get by them. So in a way, it's almost more restrictive having 2 small lanes that are separated by a median than having 1 single lane. I think this is it's more consistent with the neighborhood, it's more consistent with the streets around, it's more environmentally sensitive, and actually it provides, if not equal, better service when you think about from a traffic standpoint.
Okay, and I still, it's just an engineering question. From the corner of the Reynolds property across from Shufelt Road, all the way up to the corner by the train tracks, what is that? We're going to have to see the exact distance on that. the entire frontage on Summer Street. That should be on the revised plans that we get. Okay. Board members, do you have any other questions or comments on this before we move over to South Walpole Square?
Yeah, John, excuse me, Chairman. The building one, you had the stairwell coming in on the side, and you show a drawing. What's behind that doorway? Is that parking spaces right up to that doorway?
No, it opens into the aisle. So Leslie, can you bring that back up?
Yeah, there's definitely a floor plan that shows that. And Drew, we asked him to make sure that door opened up to the aisle and it's not.
Yeah, I think opening into the outside is great, and I saw the drawing and I just wanted to verify that that was indeed what I saw.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a drawing that shows those spaces laid out.
Okay.
There you go.
Right. Questions about the crosswalk at Washington Street. If you were heading south on Washington Street, turning on to Summer Street, you had Ken had said that the traffic signal would stop if someone hit the crosswalk. Would that crosswalk there as well be illuminated? Because I don't see any sort of stop sign proposed or anything right where the cursor just was.
Yeah, no, Drew, that wouldn't have a signal because it's just the right turn lane and you've got good visibility in both directions.
Even for the crosswalk, if someone signaled the crosswalk to cross any other in that intersection, there would be no signaling alert at that crosswalk there?
Correct. So you just need the crosswalk, the signalized crosswalk as part of the intersection. Since that right turn is unsignalized, it's a free right. You don't have any signal control at that location.
Would it be beneficial if this is the proposed plan to have some sort of alert signal there for people crossing that intersection?
They're definitely gonna have advanced signage. Are you thinking like a flashing beacon or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm envisioning children leaving the proposed project, walking down Summer Street, hitting the crosswalk button, and now they can cross into that little small island there. And yet, at that point, there's nothing else left. It's hopefully a car's not barreling down Washington Street and wipes them out, I guess is my concern.
Yeah, I think our thought process there is if they were going to the school, we'd want them to cross at the street and go right across and then stay on the street. That way they wouldn't have to cross back at the school. I get your point. Typically, we wouldn't signalize that a right turn lane, a crosswalk on a right turn lane like that. I can, maybe Ken can elaborate, but
I'm not looking necessarily for a signal so much as something sort of like an illuminated warning device that would identify that once that signal has been stopped so people can cross any crosswalk, that be included as well.
Yeah, so you're thinking like one of those flashers that you see at a mid-crosswalk or something like that?
I mean, unless the applicant's proposing to provide a crosswalker for that intersection due to the increase in traffic from their project, I think that would be beneficial for that redesign of that intersection.
Okay, we'll look into that. I mean, there's a lot of design work that's going to have to happen, and it's going to all be reviewed at different stages by the town. So we'll get plenty of opportunity to look at things like that.
The other question I had for that new revised plan for that intersection, is the applicant proposing any sort of illumination or street lighting or anything like that for that area? Improvements?
I don't know what is there. I would imagine there's going to be some street lighting that'd be part of the actual design process. The question is, what's the right level? Do we know what's out there right now?
There, Sean, Ken again. There are a couple of poles that do have some luminaires on them, and as part of our design, I think a couple of the poles are going to have to move. but we haven't gotten in, we're just completing, the additional survey effort that we talked about. But that's one of the things that we would look at as part of our design, is to make sure that there's adequate lighting, and that it's not intrusive to the properties that are currently there.
Yeah, that's another nice thing about the T intersection. If we move light poles, they're going to be moved generally further away from the houses.
Correct.
And then my last question is actually more of a clerical question. Maybe Amy might be best to answer. Is the property at 87 Summer Street, is that going to be relevant to site control or the permit application or anything like that? That they are now proposing for a utility easement?
So Amy Questle, Town Council, that's a really good question. Added property should be subject to site control. However, if they have a written easement for that area of the property, they should be all set.
Yeah, we will have a recorded easement.
Yeah. So once they get the recorded easement, they will go to Mass Housing. They will simply they'll get a modification of their project eligibility letter, which wouldn't hold up any permit, because they have the recorded easement, which does prove site control of that area.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Amy, do we need to review the form of that easement just to make sure it's got the right?
Yes, we would. And we would also have to have we would want to have the fire department sign off on it, just to make sure that they're comfortable with the rights that they're given. Obviously, I'm assuming it's going to be something as simple for emergency access for, emergency vehicles, but we will take a look at it, definitely.
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that we also need to make sure that we have the sufficient area that we need.
And my other concern is just enforcement provisions.
Mm-hmm. Correct, with the gate.
So the temptation to park people on it is going to be.
Right. We cannot do that.
Yeah.
And plowing and maintenance.
Yep.
Yep. So.
And that will all be required, and that will be required by the, I'm assuming the property management company. We would require them to make sure that it's always clear and free.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, Drew, thank you for your questions and comments. Anybody else from the board with questions or comments on this? I have one about the South Waffle Square, if we can go back to that image. As particularly students, if they were to leave the proposed development, and we can't see it here, will they walk across Summer Street and then walk on as you're showing there, yes, with the cursor moving along. Is that how they would go, or would they walk right in front of the South Waffle Fire Station?
So, Ken, you want to answer that?
Well, the intent is, let's use the existing sidewalk system. And so they would cross just on the other side of the railroad tracks at the existing flashing beacon, and then walk in a northeasterly direction, and then tie into this new sidewalk and walk down and cross at the signal, push the bed button, stop all the traffic and cross, and then turn and head north up to the school.
Okay, and I also noticed that there's no crosswalk at Neponset Street, and I know there's almost a worn path in the dirt there. I'm just concerned that people take the path of least resistance, which would mean they'd walk out of the development and walk up Summer Street on the left-hand side, as opposed to crossing over to the sidewalk. And I can ask Ken this, what's your thoughts on sidewalk on both sides of Summer Street?
I think in light of what we have and what's proposed, and for a matter of some goodwill, so to speak, it would be better to keep them on the east side of Summer Street. As part of our survey, when we did our survey and we had one of our original concepts for the sidewalk on the west side or north side of Summer Street, the sidewalk would have to jog in a couple of locations because of existing features, fire hydrants for one thing, light poles. But secondarily, the two new homes that were built there on the corner, some of the fencing that's there now and some of that landscaping was planted on the town's land. If the town wanted to today, they could go out there and put a sidewalk there and just wipe all that stuff out, so to speak.
Yeah, so there were a couple practical challenges with doing a sidewalk on that side. The other thing is we've got the stream crossing. So it would mean, I don't know if there's enough room actually to put a sidewalk and cross that stream as well. So it might mean some structural solution at that point. The awkwardness that Ken just talked about, which was, well, those people have sort of taken squatters' rights over that property. So not saying that we couldn't do it, but it's another battle. And then we have the issue with the encroachment of the existing sidewalk at 1885. I think this option would give us a little bit more room to fit that, but it's a little bit tight through there as well. From a safety standpoint, I always like to keep the fewer major crossings we have, the fewer options people have for crossing, the more simple you make it. Generally, the more safe it is. So yeah, in a way, having two sidewalks is just two means of interaction with traffic as opposed to one means of interaction. So in one way, I think having a single sidewalk and a single crossing location that's predominant is a better way to solve the problem.
Okay, and
John, can I ask another quick question?
sure, go ahead, Suzanne.
Please. First of all, I want to ask Chief Carmichael this question too. Neponset Street may turn into a cut through now. That's what I'm picturing. If I was coming up summer, I don't want any lights. I'm going to cut through Neponset. So I just want his take on that, and we can, if anyone has any other questions for John, Chief Carmichael, that could be a time right now. But I would like to ask him if he feels that will turn into a cut through road. Please.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
It's a cut through now, unfortunately.
Yeah, but this is going to exasperate it, I think.
Yeah, you know what? Most of the time with that area, we have problems when the stadium events, and what happens is
Right.
traffic backs up on Washington Street, and then people see the traffic backing up, and you're right, they bang the right, and they kind of circle through the neighborhood and come up Ponset Street to take the right onto Summer.
Do you think if we made it one way or something, would that help maybe?
I mean, from what I remember in the last meeting we had, they showed us where the where the cues were for the light, and I'm pretty sure even at the highest, and you know, the engineers could attest to this, I would say better than I can, but that they, you know, the traffic wasn't backed up significantly to the point where people would maybe be encouraged to make that turn. I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen at all, but I don't think that it'll happen as much as, you know, we might think.
Right, the chief makes a good point, Suzanne, is the level of service at this intersection goes up quite a bit from current conditions. So the queues get much shorter with the signal than with what they currently experience. So Ken, do you remember what the level of service was currently at the intersection?
At the existing triangles?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was an unsignalized E or F in the future for a couple of the movements.
Yeah, so we go from an E or an F to a B, Suzanne. So really, this is the queues are going to be much shorter, and that's going to Ponset Street to get further on Washington Street is a pretty long way to go. I get it if you're going through a tough intersection that's difficult to navigate and you don't know when you're going to get through it. But I think when you have the confidence of a signal and you know that it's, you get pretty used to using it, and the queues aren't too long, you're going to see it's going to be much easier, and there's going to be much less cut-through traffic happening on the Ponset.
Okay. I just wanted to check with the chief because he knows his stuff.
Sure. Also, just one other quick comment. I share everyone's concerns with the crosswalks. I think this design was definitely my favorite. I really love this this look here. I think it's much safer than what we have right now. As far as the crosswalks, I am trying to get several new crossing guides in my budget each year. So we did put one on last year, and I'm hoping to get one or two more so that I could put them in South Walpole Square for Boyden School crossings. So I'll keep working on that.
And guys, just one thing that did come up during our discussions today, we do have to take a look at during the course of design, the whole parent drop-off and where they stage for that, because I think some people use the sort of the area in front of the church that's outside of the edge line to queue. So we're gonna have to take a look at that to make sure we're not doing things that make that too awkward.
Okay, and Sean, I think that's a good point too. Unless somebody else, other board members have questions or comments, to move on. I do have, is there somebody from the sewer and water department or engineering that wants to address the looping of the water system? Are they out there, Ashley?
I always feel like a medium when that question. Are you with us? I just promoted Rick, so Rick should be able to. Rick, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good evening, folks. Rick Mattson here. Yeah, the looping situation is far better than originally proposed. While it's not ideally what Sewer and Water would like to see, it is much better than originally proposed, and it's something that we can live with.
And on that, Mr. Mattson, would you have preferred it if the water main went underneath the tracks over to Neponset Street? Would that be better?
Ideally, yes, it would be.
Okay, well, that's still things that we can have in the conversation. Thank you. Okay, if nobody else has questions, I'd like to open it up to the public. Ashley, do you have anything to add?
Nope, not at this point. So for public comment, I'm going to open up the chat feature, but it's just so that people can write their name. Please don't put actual comments in the chat. And so you can either put your name in there or raise your hand, and then I'll say your name, and then you should be able to unmute yourself. So the first hand that we have up is Erica Burden.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you. So I'm Erica Burden. I live at 1915 Washington Street, so I would be considered an abutter. I don't even know where to start. I just have to say that I'm horrified at the fact that earlier in this meeting, a garage was denied because it ruined the character of the neighborhood. And here we are talking about a 300 unit complex coming into South Walpole with this crazy intersection with traffic lights and ripping out the South Walpole Common that has been here for hundreds of years. It's horrifying. And I know it's different laws and local laws are different from state laws, but to hear that the garage was denied and we're sitting here looking at this, it's mind-boggling, to be honest. We're the town of South Walpole. We're a very small community. We're not the city of Walpole, and we're not the city of Cedar Edge campus. And I am not okay with this intersection. I live here. I live on Washington Street Extension. I'm looking at the map, and the first thing that I noticed was they want to remove the crosswalk that is in front of my street that I walk my kids across to get to school. And I don't know if people understand that The kids going to Boyden are in the 4th and 5th grade. A lot of them walk to school by themselves, and a lot of them ride their bikes. So now I have to send my 9-year-old across 2 different crosswalks. I don't even understand this, with a traffic light, as opposed to just walking across the street in the crosswalk like we normally do. It's all very confusing. Putting a traffic light here severely compromises the character of this neighborhood. There are no traffic lights in South. So
Can we pull up the image of the intersection so we can all see as Eric is talking, because I think that would help.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Erica, once they pull it up.
Okay. So I live at Washington Street Extension, and at the corner house, there's like a note saying remove existing crosswalk. So that's where we cross. So when I'm coming out Washington Street Extension, I cross that corner. They actually just put that crosswalk in maybe a year or 2 ago. It's brand new. And I actually complained a bunch of times, and I believe that's why they put the crosswalk in, because it was unsafe for us to walk across. So now I feel like we have to cross at that green and then cross again, I guess, at that traffic light area. I don't really know. You know, I know that the police are okay with this, and somehow it's gonna control game day traffic, but a lot of the residents that live here are not okay with this plan. I don't know. I know that intersection is not safe the way it is. I know that because I walk it every single day. But this to me doesn't make any sense. And putting a traffic light in the middle of a residential community, I don't understand how that could be allowed, to be honest. I am still not clear, and I think somebody mentioned this as well. Boyden traffic extends from Boyden School all the way down to that house on the corner. And I've sent zoning board a number of pictures to prove that. The cars can't line up all the way to the right, so they're often kind of blocking, like they're in the middle of Washington Street almost. It's hard for cars to pass. So now I feel like the cars are going to be stopped in the middle of that intersection. And now they're going to be blocking the crosswalks that kids are going to be using to walk home. So I just don't understand how any of this makes sense. And it certainly doesn't go with the South Walpole neighborhood. And again, I'm an RTM here. I've had a number of calls about this. I've been sent emails. I've talked to select board members, and nobody is on board with this. And I feel like because we live here, we should have just as much as a say as the police and any other department that doesn't live here. They don't live here. They don't understand what goes on here every day. Nobody does, unless you live here. So that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your comments. And again, that's why we have the public hearing, so that we can hear your concerns. And I pulled it up on Google Maps. I see the existing crosswalk on my other computer that it goes right across from Washington Street Extension. So I see what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Okay.
Okay, and Bill Hamilton?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I have 3 concerns and one suggestion. The concerns are the emergency exit. Now, I travel that road a lot, and I don't think you've got the sight line to be able to put a driveway there or an entrance onto that road there. I think that's very dangerous. I think that the sight line would make that very unusual. And, okay, you could say that only fire trucks and police vehicles are using it. That's maybe true. But if there is a problem at the main entrance, and there could be, then people would have to use it. And so having very residents of that community using that as a way in and out would be very dangerous. So that's my first concern on that. The second concern is the ability to reduce water usage in the complex. I heard someone say something about low flow showers. And I don't know how you could regulate that. I don't know how you could mandate it. I think, if I remember right, Steinfeld did a wonderful little program, a TV series, where he did show how people would avoid using low flow shower heads. So I don't think that's a good idea to, save water. And you can't charge people who use the water in the apartments because the apartment owner pays the water bill. So that's my second concern. Now, the parking. I can remember when Washington Green had parking wars. People would have terrible, terrible disagreements over someone else parking in their parking place. So to suggest that someone could park in one of the units and then walk to wherever they're going, no matter how long that walk would be, it's not doable because people claim parking spots. So the people that live in those buildings claim certain parking spots. And if you park in their spot, they get very upset. So that's the second concern. Now, the third concern is in order to restrict your parking, you're hamstrung by the wetlands. Well, not only that, you are in Area 3. Area 3 is our aquifer for our water supply. If you want to increase parking, the conversation earlier was like, hey, we'll just pave over a little bit more and give you some more parking spots. Well, the problem is, if you pave over, you go over the 15% impervious. And I think you're already over that now, trying to get a waiver to allow that. And the town of Walpole can't afford to give you waivers for not staying within the impervious because we need to recharge our aquifers. In fact, we have a new problem now with the fields. The fields is throwing a tremendous amount of water down into South Walpole. And this is millions of gallons of water a day is coming down, running through, entering the streams, and flowing right to the site of this proposed development. So you're going to have more water, more storm water, and the solution might be that you're going to take that storm water and throw it downstream. And that would be terrible for our water supply, for our drinking water supply. So now you are in the head of the Neponset River watershed. So everybody in the Neponset River watershed can draw some water out of the Neponset River watershed. Walpole, we draw, 2 to 3 million gallons a day is our quota. So that other people downstream can draw it. So I know that all these engineers, they all think that they can come up with a solution, like putting drainage in the ground. Well, putting drainage in the ground requires maintenance. And there's never a good maintenance plan for the drainage going into the ground, whether you're taking roof drainage off the buildings or whatever. Now, the simple solution to get more parking place without going into the wetlands and without violating the 15% impervious is to build less units. And I think that you have to consider that because you're at the boundary now of being very, very destructive to our water supply. And I think that you also need to, when you look at that emergency road, I think you have to determine if it has the sight line needed for an entrance onto the roadway there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, and next is Bill Abbott.
Hello, this is Bill Abbott. I'm chairman of the Sewer and Water Commission, and I want to just echo Rick's comments on that easement, that it does definitely make an improvement because the original plan really was very deficient, and that the a much better loop would be to get out to Neponset Street. And if they're not going to do that, then I would like to see at least a stub off from maybe the area of buildings number 31, 30, 32, or also the far end of building 1 out to the railroad tracks, so that at least maybe somewhere in the future we might be able to cross the railroad tracks and get out to Neponset Street. I don't know if the developer seriously looked at going through across the tracks over to Neponset Street. I'd be interested to know if they did or didn't. But at least a stub in those 2 locations, at least at the potential of doing something in the future.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Abbott. Mr. Hale, do you want to comment on that, or you don't have to, but if you did look into it, that you could answer that now.
Yeah, so we haven't really looked into it, and we don't control the right-of-way. We don't control any land on the other side of the right-of-way. Across from building 1, if you cross the tracks, you're into a great big solar field. And so that my answer is that there's no practical solution there. And I think, you know, we did provide a memo that from a registered engineer saying that the loop that we are providing through the access and utility easement works perfectly from a hydraulic point of view and meets regulatory requirements.
I'm not doubting that it is definitely an improvement, but a far superior one is to get as far into the development as possible.
So, I would point out that the interior, all of the water is looped inside the property.
No, I understand.
Okay, thank you both, Mr. Hale and Mr. Abbott. Ashley, who else would like to comment?
So up next is Rosemary. Rosemary, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
All right.
I'm on Eldor, and I agree with everything that Erica had said about watching somebody come forward to try to put a two-story garage, and it was going to disrupt the neighborhood of Winthrop Street. This is a monstrosity. But the traffic, this whole traffic scheme here, what I keep hearing is everybody keeps talking about the church. Does anybody know what that church is? Anybody? Has anybody looked into that, what that church is?
Yeah, it's a daycare there.
No, it's not. Yeah, preschool. We have over 100 kids a day.
And there's a lot of, yes, we're.
What, out front.
You're talking to a zoning board that's very familiar with South Walpole.
I wasn't speaking to you. I was speaking to Mr. Hale. Not you, Mr. Hale. I know you all know what it is. I'm asking Mr. Hale and the man that did this traffic analysis. Did you know that was a preschool?
I did know that was a preschool, yes. It's a nice amenity to have in the neighborhood, and I hope that my future residents will take advantage of it.
Okay, that's not my issue. My issue is our kids play outside there, right out front. So can you explain to me what this white by the crosswalk, we have parking spots there. What's happening to those?
Okay, first off, all questions go through the zoning board, not to Mr. Hale. So if you would, can somebody pull up the...
I can't see because it's blurry.
Okay, so can you pull up the, are there parking spots currently on?
Yes, all in front of the school up front.
Okay.
So John, this is kind of what I spoke about before. They're not straight parking lots, but there's room to park cars outside the edge line. So those are things that are going to have to get worked out during. This is just a concept for discussions and for evaluation from a traffic standpoint. So
I just wanted to make sure that the person that was doing these, this whole design here understood that that's a preschool. So we take our kids outside in the front, they play in the snow there. We go read stories out there. It's hectic and crazy enough as it is, never mind all of this. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware. Again, I know the ZBA knows that, but the people that are designing this knew that was a preschool, because every time it gets spoken about, it's just a church. And to me, a church is like somebody's going there Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Also, the Boyden traffic, like Erica said, I know pictures have been sent. We're in a pandemic and there is half the amount of cars, and you are still backed up from Boyden all the way down to Water Street. And that's half the cars. Now, you need to think about when you add everybody back into school on top of all these kids that are going to be living over here. The last thing I want to talk about is just the crosswalk. Somebody said, kids can follow the crosswalks. Kids don't follow the rules. Let's be real. I mean, a third or fourth grader isn't going to go and, we would hope that they would. I would, as a parent, but I know my kids make mistakes. I know kids make mistakes. So I think that has to be firmed up. You can't just assume that they're going to be able to find that crosswalk where they should be going, is my point. I wanted to make sure that people knew that was a school, not a church. And, the spots that are being taken from the preschool up front and the traffic that is at Boyden is ridiculous in itself. And there's half the amount of kids at school right now.
Chairman Lee, if I could just say real quick, I feel some responsibility for what people are seeing in front of them. The applicant in the very beginning wanted no part of any changes to this intersection. We identified it as an existing problem that needed to get fixed in some way. And this is an effort to address all of those concerns. So this is in large part is a creation of our comment, in that there's an existing problem there that's going to get exacerbated by the project, and that the project has a responsibility to do something to fix an existing problem. And in our opinion, and in the opinion of the departments, this is an improvement that's going to help all those things that people are experiencing currently. And we think it's a much safer installation. Agreed, we have to deal with the issues at the queuing for the Boyden School and for the issues at the daycare, but those are all things that will and can happen during the course of design of the intersection. This intersection isn't designed. There's still a fairly detailed design process that has to be undertaken as part of that effort.
Yeah, and I totally see that and respect that, but as a parent who's had 3 boys go through Boyden and being a teacher there, at South Waffle Preschool, it is a complete chaotic disaster when it comes to pick up and drop off. Never mind, I don't know if anybody's taken into account that the time's going to change at the Boyden, and they're going to be syncing up with the time that the preschool is going to school when we're on that every 3-year flip. So that's in the queue for next year, and that will be for the next 3 years.
And Rosemary, I'll give you, everything we do here is intended to make things better, not to satisfy the needs of the project. This is something that we definitely made them do to address an existing problem.
Right, I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure that, that Mr. Hale knew it wasn't just a church, that people were going once a week, and that people knew that now that queue for drop off in the morning at Boyden will be lining up with South Walpole Preschool going forward for the next 3 years. It's going to be all the same time.
Great. So I think that's a good point, and we're also looking at this as, and you said yourself, Rosemary, it's a bad situation right now, and can we make, will this design make it better? And that's up for discussion, and that's why we're having the public hearing. So
yeah, thank you. It's just as a mom and a teacher, I want to be able to take my kids outside and be able to do everything that they've been doing at preschool out front without a traffic light to my left. That's a big thing to think about with kids out there. That's our area. We have every right to be out there with the kids. So I just want that to be something to be taken into effect as well.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Rosemary?
Oh, sorry, I
Okay.
went to the fun. So the next person is Kate Fargo.
Hi. So a lot of my concerns have already kind of been brought up and addressed. I share the same concern with the traffic pattern as well. My concern is I live on Summer Street. So I also grew up in this house that I live in and raise my kids in now. As a child, the crosswalk in the area, Washington Street, you guys want the kids to use to get to the Boyden School side. That's kind of there already. And no one uses it. So I have a lot of concern with that. I think a crosswalk should be put by Summer Street, where it is already sort of in that traffic pattern. But my biggest and ultimate concern is I live at 96 Summer Street, so I'm across the street from 87 Summer Street, where this new entrance is going to be put in. I'm on a blind driveway. We live on a corner, so every single time I pull in and out of my driveway, I am literally saying a prayer, holding my breath, and hoping I make it alive into my own driveway. It's a really dangerous corner, and people do not obey the speed limit on this corner either. And there is, as it was mentioned before, there's no sight line. You can't see what is around that corner. So putting a road there is really concerning, especially, I'm thinking of fire, I'm thinking of police and things too. When they come to my house, if I call 911, they park on that curb there because they can't even pull into my own driveway. So I'm really not liking that idea, and I think it's a really dangerous spot to be putting another entrance. I'd also like to know how that's going to be enforced, that it's only going to be used for utility and emergency situations and things like that too. That's really all that I have to say with my concerns for right now, but it's a really dangerous spot. Every snowstorm, there's at least one accident. It's just going to cause, I think, a lot more problems than it would help.
Okay, Kate, don't go away. Thank you for your comments on that. And one of the things that I had in my notes was we could put a condition, if this were approved, that anytime that emergency access is opened, that a paid police detail would be on Summer Street. The expectation is it would not be open unless it was a water main break at the other entrance. So they had to have that open, and it would not be open regularly. That would be in the conditions of the zoning board if this was approved.
Okay, and then is there any consideration too of any sort of like signs or slow down something maybe up the street further so that people are alerted to maybe slow down a little bit more on the corner?
We have Chief Carmichael here for, he might be able to address traffic enforcement in the area or signage. Chief, do you want to say anything on that?
Sure, hi again. So I'm sorry, so whereabouts? Use the cursor to show me where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Summer Street.
Yeah, that's a pretty sharp curve there. Are you talking about putting, what type of signs?
they're talking about putting an entrance in there or some sort of road there. So I'm talking about if they do that, in fact, is there going to be anything safety-wise put up the street to kind of slow everyone down a little bit as they're coming around the corner, if that's going to be an in and out kind of situation where cars are coming in and out of it?
Yeah, sure. We could have, so our crash reconstructionist, Steve Foley, could probably take a look at that. A lot of times he'll come out and do some of the site distances and kind of figure out, maybe we could put a slow curve sign or entrance ahead or something. We could probably put something in there just to kind of warn people that there's the entrance there. We do have a similar entrance like that at the development on Moose Hill Road. And it works pretty good. We don't use it too often, but it's, you know, it's just there as a public safety mechanism when we do. And if I could also real quick with the traffic light in the South Walpole Square area, I was very supportive of that. And a lot of that in my comments early on in the stages here were for the best interest of South Walpole. We do get a significant amount of complaints right in that area now where we have traffic issues, speeding, a lot of complaints about pedestrian safety. We were able to move one of those crosswalks over there off of Water Street. But I think it's important, I just wanted to note that, you know, my support for that and my comments and, you know, and the acceptance of this through the developers was to try and make this area safer, and especially keeping in mind the, you know, the churches there with the preschool and the Boyden School as well. So I wanted to, you know, the configuration now is extremely confusing and just kind of everything's kind of going all in different directions. So I thought that this would, having traffic lights there, nice sidewalks, crosswalks, that it would just make it a safer environment down there for everybody. So that's kind of just where I was coming from. I figured I would let everyone know that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you for your comments. Kate, thank you for your input. And I hope my explanation of what can be done to make that emergency access safer helps.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And John, if I could add, just to reiterate, that emergency access is not for regular use. That's got gates on both ends that are locked, and the only people that have the keys are the police and fire department. And our expectation is that if it's ever used, to your point, John, if it's ever used for residents' vehicles or other traffic, it would be under detail control.
Okay, Ashley, who else do we have?
Yep, so the next hand raised was Joanne Mulligan.
Hi all, can you hear me? This is Joanne.
Hey Joanne.
There's a lot to cover. Thank you, Chair Lee and board and everyone from Omni, Ashley. Thank you, Chief Carmichael, for your comments. I appreciate what Kate just said. We had been in contact with each other. She's at a really bad curve that got a lot of discussion during the Foxborough Gillette train. I live further down Summer Street away from the project going towards Norfolk, and that hill, it's such a blind hill. It's really tough. So yeah, I wasn't too happy about the access road being right there, but I understand, Sean, that it's not going to be used. And I think having a police detail, you know, is going to be necessary when it is open. Very bad turn, as Chief Carmichael just mentioned. I'm not sure. I just wanted to ask too, what, right at the entrance exit of the complex on Summer Street, you know, near the train tracks, what, I might have missed this, there's been a lot going on, sidewalks there for the kids coming out of the complex, you know, I'm not gonna hypothesize how many kids are in there, but for people walking.
Can we zoom in on the front of the access, right? Can we zoom in on that? And can somebody walk us through where the crosswalk is, or proposed crosswalk for this?
So, Mr. Chairman, there is an existing crosswalk. It's on the east side of the track. So there's a sidewalk, existing sidewalk that was just rebuilt by the MBTA or Keolis or whoever. And so people leaving our site and heading east toward the Boyden School will walk on the existing sidewalk. And then there's a crosswalk, existing crosswalk with flashers that will take them to the south side of Summer Street, and they can walk along the sidewalk all the way to the proposed reconfigured intersection where they can push a button, stop traffic, and safely cross the road.
So there'll be a flashing light, Mr. Hale?
So there is a flashing light now in front of the post office at the crosswalk.
A light or at the train track?
There are flashing beacons at the crosswalk. Yes. And then people can walk along the sidewalk on the south side of Summer Street, and they'll be able to follow that all the way to the newly reconfigured intersection, where they can stand at the light, push the button, and by pushing that button, traffic will stop, and they'll be able to cross, safely cross Washington Street.
Great. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's great. Thank you. Now, as we go up back, thank you for this picture, whoever just put it up. So then we get back to the reconfigured South Walpole Common. I'm an RTM and I have gotten a lot of calls on this. I think, I understand, and I've written letters about the character of the neighborhood and how historic South Walpole Common is with the Methodist Church, which is a couple hundred years old. I think that having a traffic light is really jarring to people. I agree with Chief Carmichael, I may be in a minority here, that is much safer. I know exactly what he does with his traffic and trying to control that kind of dangerous configuration that we have right now. I was kind of hoping maybe for a stop sign, but it's got to be really intuitive for people to make sure that they stop. I've been asking for a sign that just says not a four-way stop, because people don't realize they don't stop at the stop sign and they stop when it's no stop sign. It's really crazy, and I've seen millions of near-miss accidents over the years here. But I am worried about the light and kind of destroying the character, and I'm just conveying the opinions of people that have been in contact with me this week. I think there are a lot of kids that are actually on Erica Street that do walk to school, and even though I live further down, I'm constantly caught in that backup of traffic for Boyden School, and it is huge. I know people might change, the way their methods and say, okay, 3 o'clock, I'm not gonna be going around that area. Maybe that'll happen over time, but this area definitely needs some kind of change. As I said, it is really dangerous at this point. So I just feel like you don't think of a traffic light when you think of historic common. And, I do get sad. People are really attached to the common as it is now. Having something that's kind of more modernized, I guess we could make it into whatever, but something new to people is modernized, and that's not what South Walpole is really all about. I wanted to bring up a couple points on the water, because water is so important, and I find it a little bit strange that, there was never really a public hearing with sewer and water, given how important it is. So I appreciate what Mr. Hamilton brought up about the looping, and I have done a little research on this, and I agree with Bill Abbott also that, it sounds like sewer and water would like to see the looping go out to Neponset Street. And what I've learned about looping is, looping done correctly really helps keep the water moving, water quality and water pressure to be good, which is hugely important to everyone. So I would just say that if right now, if it can be done a little bit better to make it more, we're on the aquifer. I just think it makes more sense to kind of come out instead of being in the project. Go to Summer Street, come back in the project doesn't seem to make sense. And I'm not an expert, but that's my thought. And then I do think that, I know that they had asked, I read the letter from Sewer and Water from early November, a demand and capacity hydraulic study. It seems like that would just be something that we would want. I know that when the preserve was built on Route 1, they definitely had a big problem with how I believe it was sewer that was set up, and it became a financial issue where sewage was like backing up. And, this was years ago, but it just seems like that and what Mr. Hamilton mentioned with us having water problem on Winter Street in South Walpole from the brand new fields that just opened, it really puts a lot of strain on this area. And I know water issues really end up affecting the whole town. My last point was the whole issue about the recharge. And it sounds like to me, what I've learned from Sewer and Water is they would like to have it much less. The number says it's 28% in the memo that they wrote, and they want it to be much more closer to 15%, where, water is obviously just runs off the more impervious surfaces that you have. And, Walpole loses all that water, which I could imagine that is definitely an issue. So I hope that some of the water concerns get a little bit more attention. I think that would be, extremely wise. And I guess in general, I just have to say this. There aren't a lot of homes in South Walpole. This project is as big as all the homes in South Walpole, and it is really a huge project with 300 units. And people are just not happy. And so I just, I'm pleading for downsizing this project. It's a lot. It's a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Ashley, do we have other people?
We sure do. Maura?
Hi. Yep, Maura Clow.
Hi.
I'm an RTM for Precinct 5. I'd like to echo the concerns that Joanne just gave, Bill Hamilton. One of the questions I have, is there a market study for a demonstrated need for this? Is there, maybe I haven't been paying attention, but I've never seen one. Is there a need for 300 housing units in South Walpole that I missed?
So, you know what, I'm going to let Town Council, Amy, do you want to just explain to Mara a little bit about what needs to be shown here? Thank you.
Sure. So for a project eligibility letter that they have received from Mass Housing, they don't necessarily have to prove an actual need for that area. It is the need of the town. And because the town is under 10% of affordable housing, then there's a presumed need for affordable housing.
Right. No, I understand the 10% need for affordable housing. I'm just concerned. So this entire development will be affordable housing?
No. So when you have a affordable housing development, you have to have a certain percentage of that has to be affordable housing. If you have a rental project and you have 25% affordable housing in that rental project, we get credit. The town of Walpole gets credit for all of the units, not just the affordable units, but also the market rate units.
Right.
If you have a for sale project, we can only count the affordable units. And so here it's a hybrid. And so we would be getting the amount of units that are in the rental portion. And then we would also be getting the, which is 240, then we would also be getting the 25% of the 60 for sale units.
Right. Now, I understand the affordable housing problem in Walpole. We're constantly chasing our tail because we never hit the 10%. We built more houses, and we're never going to hit this number. So this isn't going to help us meet that market, correct? This development will not help us get to 10%.
It will help get to 10%.
But will we get to 10% with this project?
We will not get to 10%.
We will add an additional 300 units that will not get us to where we need to be. So we are still will be subject to this type of zoning. Right?
Correct. As long as you are under 10%, you are subject to Chapter 40B. I mean, you're always subject to Chapter 40B.
Right.
But the other thing is, there's not just the 10% safe harbor. There are numerous safe harbors. In my opinion, they're all difficult. But some are not as difficult as actually achieving the 10%. So there's the housing production plan. There's when the town shows that there's a forward movement towards affordable housing, we can get a reprieve, of 1 or 2 years. So there are certain things that could work. But no, you're right. We will not be getting to 10%.
Well, it always could work, and every 2 years we have to keep revisiting this. So,
exactly.
So I've lived in Walpole for 20 years now. I've been in R10 for quite some time. This is a constant battle that I feel we talk about a lot. My bigger concern again is with the water, which is another thing we talk about constantly in Walpole. So when Suzanne Murphy mentioned that little congruence of the units there without parking, and that hardscape would be fine, we'll just put it in. That again takes away drainage. This is, I'm reiterating points that have already been made. So I just wanted to reiterate that one. My other concern is in the new intersection, that new green space, who's maintaining that? If you could pull up the new crosswalk. The green space where currently there's a road and that little bump out in front of, when you're coming down Summer Street and where you'd make a right, that much more enlarged green space where there's currently a road. Yes, right there. Who will be maintaining that? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm not going to say for sure who's going to maintain it, but that is in the public layout, so that would be.
So that would be another thing for the Walpole Parks Department to do.
Well, who takes care of the common right now?
I think a lot of volunteers do.
Okay,
so.
But either way, I don't know the property ownership of the common. But if it's in the public layout, it's part of the town's responsibility.
Okay, so that would be another increase for the town to mow, maintain, seed, and have 600 kids walking across it every day. Right, so that'll be very attractive to our South Walpole Town Square. One of my other questions was in the development, one of the traffic circles around the 50 unit is counting as wetlands. So are we that deficient that a traffic circle has to count as wetlands? So if you pull closer to where that new access road, yep, down there. If you zoom in, 100-foot wetlands, a traffic circle is counting as wetland? So we're that deficient in wetlands?
No, that's just the 100-foot line.
So
see how the dashed line goes through it?
Line. Okay, I thought that you were counting that as wetlands. Gotcha. Okay, so that is giving the 100-foot easement to the north, looking at this map, to lot 2.
What that does, that's a line that defines the jurisdictional boundary of the Conservation Commission. It's the 100-foot offset from the wetland.
From lot 2, like that wetland and the one behind like 56, between like 30 and 56?
Yeah, that big sort of, with all the dots in it. That's the
Gotcha. All right, I thought I saw it in the circle and I'm like, I can't believe they're using a traffic circle as wetlands. Okay. All right, the other question I did have about, that Suzanne Murphy did bring up, besides the parking there, with over 300, approximately, you have 200, how many apartment buildings will there be? Almost 200? Multifamily buildings?
There's 192 units in the 2 multifamily buildings.
Right. And so all of them, and over, I just did like a calculation about if everybody has 2 cars in that entire place, that would count for like 425 cars, right? And most suburban households are 2 cars, correct?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I could.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hale. Are you going to answer a question about the?
Well, I'm just going to say that there's 114 one-bedroom units.
Okay.
In the complex.
Okay. Do you want to, Maury? Is there? You get into a question on the parking, or what do you?
So my question is, what does the traffic study reflect coming in and leaving the one access way during work hours, which would coincide with school hours? So where, as everyone has constantly reiterated, the backup that's currently occurring for Boyden School, how many cars are we adding with your traffic study to that current backlog?
So, does somebody want to answer on traffic? Although we've already gone through traffic and, yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
Sorry, I just want to say, so on the town website, Amy Messier, the board secretary, has done, I think, a really great job keeping the 40B webpage for this updated. So there was actually a hearing done dedicated to traffic where the board spent, I think, hours kind of going through all of these types of questions. And that recording and minutes and agenda are all posted online. So if you wanted to kind of hear that conversation, I would just encourage you and anyone else interested to go back and revisit that hearing.
So is there a published traffic study that we can access?
Yep, it's all online. And if you reach out to me tomorrow, I'm happy to show you that website and walk you through where you can find everything.
Okay, and then my last question is, there is no restriction on the number of cars that each individual apartment/bedroom can have. There's no restriction on if you have a 3-bedroom townhouse that you can't have more than 1 car, you can have 3 cars. There's no restriction.
So that could be a restriction that the zoning board puts in. I'm not sure how Mr. Hale would respond to that. Mr. Hale, do you want to respond tonight about a restriction on number of cars for a unit?
I really don't.
Okay.
It's something that I will talk to my property manager about. I'm not optimistic, but I'll do some research and get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask a clarifying question? I have the 2 multifamily buildings. I have one is 106 units and one is 84 units. And I just heard that was 192, which I only have 190. Am I wrong? Is that an 8 or a 6? Oh, I have it as a 6. That's an 8.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Would you like to go back to public comment?
Yes, please, Ashley, if there's still more people that want to comment.
Yep, there are a few hands raised, and then it looks like there are duplicate hands raised. So I'll finish with the people who haven't spoken yet. Becky Litvak, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hey everyone, ZBA members, thank you, like always, for all your hard work and especially for reading all of my many emails that I continually send you. So I appreciate your time. I feel like by the end of this, we should all go for drinks. So I guess just a couple quick points to start on. You know, I live on Washington Street Extension right beside Erica Burden. So everything she started off with tonight, you know, I duplicate what she says. The parent drop off at Boyden, I have personally sent pictures to you as well. If you can just ask them to go back to that intersection slide for a moment. So I do understand that this could, you know, be helpful from police standpoint. I think one of the questions I have is with that signal at the cross now, I feel like there's going to be a lot of backup going around that curve to Water and Street and Route 1, where I live on that extension, and then I'm going to be trying to get in and out of my street. And because of this, I feel like it's going to be even more difficult than it already is on a daily basis, not even including stadium events, because I've sat in 40-minute traffic just trying to get, you know, 2 miles down Washington to my street. But on every day-to-day traffic, I'm concerned that I will be blocked in and out of that street. And I'm not just saying because of the signal, but we're adding hundreds of cars. I feel like we're forgetting the main point of this. There's going to be hundreds of cars, hundreds of extra residents, and I'm concerned about just getting in and out of my street, which is a dead end. So that's just one of the concerns. And I'm not saying this intersection is, you know, good or bad, because I'm not an expert. So I'm taking the experts' words for it as far as this, but that is a concern that I now have. That's, you know, it was an added concern with all of these extra cars and pedestrians. And now I'm concerned because it will be stopping because of a light. You know, in an emergency, how do I get out of my street, or how do I get to my home if there's an emergency and all of this is backed up? So just something to think about. I don't even know if there's a fix for that, but that is a new concern with this. And with the Boyden drop off, again, what happens? That light is going to be going like red, green, and it's going to be, how is that not going to be gridlocked? I mean, like I said, I've sent you pictures. Cars literally, when I come out of Boyden after picking my children up, they're coming straight at me because they have nowhere else to go. So again, I just don't understand how this is going to make that issue, you know, decrease the traffic or those issues. But kind of going away from the intersection, because I feel like it's been talked a lot tonight and everyone's made really good points. I feel like everyone's made really great points about everything, but I do think that we're forgetting about all of the safety concerns, like I just said, from the hundreds of extra residents that are coming in, the new residents and their families, and all of those cars. And these are concerns that we started talking about well over a year ago. And in those first letters that we first sent everybody, I don't feel like, if we don't change the density, if you don't decrease the density, the safety concerns have not decreased. I can tell you right now, Chief Carmichael probably knows, I have called the Walpole PD multiple times for what I will call illegal shenanigans on my dead end that's been cause for arrests. The amount of trash and liquor that you see, like empty bottles and nips that you see like on our street, not just for stadium events. We have plenty of issues on this street, people zooming down here. And now you're adding this whole complex, which again, brings all these other people. I actually worry about, now there's this huge campus and there's plenty of places for people to now go and hide and have these, like I said, illegal shenanigans happening all over this campus. And it's bringing more of that and opening up our small Walpole community to these safety concerns. Affordable housing, sure, I get it. And wanting to, you know, Hale wants to come in with Omni and make a profit, fine, I get it, that's his job. But why are we doing 300 units over hundreds of people that are coming in? It's going to ruin everything about South Walpole, absolutely ruin it. My safety concerns about the people and about for the children, the current children, the new children. It's too many people in a small area. I walk these streets every day with my children and my dog. I am constantly here. I work from home. Like I see everything every single day. And I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, if you don't decrease the density, this whole area of Walpole is going to be grieving and see so many hardships. And there's just going to be such a negative impact. I'm begging you and pleading, as you've seen in all my emails and from my neighbors, I get that you want to push this forward, or you need to push this forward, or whatever it is in the laws. It's above my pay grade, but what I'm asking you to is please, for our safety and for the South Walpole families that have been here for decades, please decrease the density. The amount of trash that I see when I'm going on walks by Summer Street right now in the little post office, I'm constantly picking up trash. It's already an issue. Now you're going to add hundreds of people that are just going to be adding to all of the problems that we already have. I mean, you say that you know South Walpole and you know all of the issues that we're having. Take away this intersection. If it does fix some problems, nothing else that's happening with this complex is going to fix or benefit anybody in this area. And I think that we've just forgotten and lost focus. We're talking a lot about parking and, you know, things on site, which I get are important for the project, but we've lost sight of how this is going to affect us. I don't want to live here anymore if there's going to be that many people here and the safety concerns. I mean, I've said from the beginning, safety is my number one priority for my family and all the families in this area. And I feel like I'm almost being pushed out of what I bought into, which was a really sweet, quaint community. And you're adding a monstrosity, not just a few. I mean, you could come in and do your 10% and add your 9% or whatever it is, and then add 100 units. But no, we've got to do 300 in an area that it just doesn't belong. So I don't want to just keep repeating myself. And I know, like I've said, I've said this so many times already and sent so many emails, but I'm pleading with you to please decrease the density for all of our safety, because what's happening here is changing all of our lives. It's changing hundreds and hundreds of people's lives that live here today. And once this project is up and running, Hale and Omni, they move on to their next project, but we are stuck with this forever. And this is not where we wanted to raise our families. There was one other thing that just popped into my head. Darn. Okay, I forgot what I was going to say, but I guess that's my last point. So again, thank you for your time and good luck.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
Okay, and the next hand raised is Fergal. Fergal, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate your time. I know the presentation started out tonight with great regard for the town and the fire department, and that's awesome. But how about South Walpole and the neighbors that live here every single day? I think that should be important too, to be kind of open and candid, because that's kind of the guy that I am. The fire department, obviously, being fair to them, are very important, and their job is really important. But they don't come to South Walpole every single day. I leave South Walpole every single day, and I return to South Walpole every single day. So I think that distinction is very important. We need to understand that we're looking at a complex of 300 people or 300 units versus residents of over 300 that live here right now. So we're looking to double the landscape, and we're here every single day. I think one of the important questions I have, and I don't need an answer to this right now, but we talked about a lot of things. We've gathered a lot of information. We don't know, I don't know, and I've been on, I would say, in the 90th percentile of the calls, how many parking spaces are in this complex? And I think that is an extremely important question, because it will back up the math that I have provided on how many cars are going to increase into this South Walpole location and the common, right? And that's really important, because the study that, you know, has been done for the traffic on Veterans Day, right, didn't really include that. So I think it's important to quantify that and really be transparent. I'll say again, and I'll continue to say, the entry to this location and the exit, extremely concerning to me. I think anybody traveling on Summer Street and heading to the rail tracks and taking a left into this complex that causes an automobile accident and backs it up onto the tracks, and then a train comes, it's such a huge problem, right? And David Hill has said, well, you know, an incident only happens once every 104 years. Well, that's great, but you recognize an incident will happen, right? So that for me is a huge problem. Patriot Steingate, it's huge. And it's not just the Patriots, it's all of the events. There have been concerts where it's taken traffic 45 minutes to go 0.04 miles on Washington Street. And that's a true story because I've actually lived in it. So regardless of the Patriots games, right, that's one thing, but the concerts and the other events are another situation. And, you know, with all due respect to Mr. Kraft, he's also a businessman. He's going to have more concerts and more events at the stadium. And you know what? I don't blame him for that. He's in the business to make money, so go make some money. Okay. But you know, it does have a spin-off and effect. Hang on, I'm getting to my point. Getting to my point.
Okay, but we've got other people that want to have comments.
I understand that, but I have a very important point here, right? And it comes to traffic. And, you know, Chief Carmichael experienced this himself because I saw him on the front lines the last time the Cowboys were in town. And do you know what happened on the Cowboys game? All the Patriots fans released their tickets and they were picked up by people that were not season ticket members, and then waves flooded South Walpole. And that's a true story. And we have to think about the fact that a certain individual left his team and went to Florida, and a lot of season ticket holders are still tied in for a number of years, and they're going to release their tickets, and we're going to have a traffic influx to South Walpole. It's a true story. It's going to happen. So there are my points, and it's something that we really need to think about. I also think that Willow and Neponset Street will absolutely be cut through streets. There's no doubt about that. When I've been stuck in the concert traffic on Washington Street, I've used it myself. It is what it is. Thank you.
Okay, the next comment is Mark Major.
Hello, hi, this is Mark Major. I live on 11 Summer Street. I wanted to just make a point to echo everyone else that this thing is just way too big to be in this location. So I hope, you know, I think we've all kind of accepted the fact that there's going to be a development in that location, but 300 units is insane for this neighborhood. And I really hope we can get to a point where it's more like 50 to 100 units. I think that would be about the only satisfactory outcome from this process. But I wanted to address one specific point on the new intersection. So if you wouldn't mind flipping that up again. Where you see Summer Street now, there's a stop sign, and that stop sign is being proposed to be removed with this new design. And I appreciate that that's for traffic, but now you've essentially created a blind curve that people today already fly around, and now will go even faster around. And the first house on the right, as you're coming down Summer Street, is my house. So I am very concerned about speed of cars that are going to be coming around that curve and getting out of my driveway, walking my children to school, which I now have to cross Summer Street to get to this new sidewalk, which is not going to be safe at all for any of my kids. And I have 3 small children. So that is a big concern for me, and how that's going to be addressed. I'm also, you know, concerned about traffic in general. Now that you've removed that stop sign, what if I'm coming down Summer Street and I want to turn onto Neponset Street, and there's a car that's coming down Neponset Street looking to stay on Summer Street? That's, you know, that looks like it's now an intersection that has no signage and will absolutely cause some sort of problem if people are turning. So, you know, again, I'm trying to address the overall intersection, which I accept that it's a problem today and it needs to be fixed. I think I have a lot of concerns now about what this is going to do to the traffic on Summer Street, and specifically the speed of cars going down Summer Street and coming around that turn after that signal. So I think that absolutely needs to be addressed. And again, I don't see how I can easily walk across that street, given where my house is, which is literally, it's probably 20 feet past where this picture cuts off on the right. So I would like to understand if there's something that can be done about that. And in general, I think anybody that's seen that intersection during a rush hour commute today knows that people don't abide by any of the speed limits. And I only expect that to get worse if they waited in a red light through 2 signals because of bad traffic. So I would like to see how that could be addressed. But that's really my point. I hope you'll take it to heart that this development is just way too big, and do anything you want with the intersection, do anything you want with the street. It doesn't fix the problem. There's just going to be way too many cars during points of the day, and this development just doesn't fit in this location. Thanks.
The next comment is Julie Laurie.
Hi guys, thank you. Julie Laurie, I live on 883 South Street. I'm an RTM for Precinct 5. I have many concerns. A lot of them have already been spoken by others. I feel like we tonight have been overly focused on pretty pictures and conceptual design that has been presented tonight, but in reality, the real issue isn't really the intersection. It's just part of it. The real issue is the size of the project that once built as planned will without any doubt have a negative impact on traffic. And it's the impact on the traffic that's the real issue here. And I don't think that you can come up with any type of design that's going to remediate any of those issues. Safety issues, traffic issues, the inconveniences that are going to be had by all of us here, not just in South Walpole. I'm about half mile up from that square that we're looking at on the slide there. And the only way I think that you're going to be able to resolve the real concerns in the traffic issues is by reducing the size of the project. I also feel like we've come away from some of the other safety concerns, which were just recently mentioned, and something I brought up in the past is the thought and fear that I have that regardless of what you do with the Washington Square area, is cars backing up on those railroad tracks. I actually don't know how you avoid it. I think everyone's throwing out these hypotheticals. Everyone's being very speculative about how this will just magically work out, but not with the project this size, not with the amount of cars that are going to be in this development coming in and out. And I'm saying that just from watching regular traffic in that area anyway. I don't know how, if you have a stoplight in those or a traffic light, and right now it's the stop sign, how are you going to avoid cars backing up on it, or a car somebody making a bad decision and turning out and it's just a little too late and it was misjudged with the timing and somebody getting stuck on those tracks. I raised that issue before. It still exists today, and there's nothing in front of me today that seems to resolve that. And that's a big issue. It's not minimal. The other issue that was raised, well, actually with this new design, when I'm looking at it, I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I'm looking at the Neponset Street area going to Washington Street, and it looks like you've removed a sidewalk. And I just don't, that just doesn't seem prudent to me unless I'm misjudging or misunderstanding the design, but I don't know how or why you'd ever take a sidewalk away from pedestrians. The other underlying issue I have is that when you're all speaking in the speculative manner and talking about, quote, pedestrians, all night tonight I'm hearing you talk about them as if there's some like herd of cows that can be reined in with signals, crosswalks, and it might be good intention, but it just doesn't work that way. Not with kids, unfortunately. It just doesn't happen. So it might be cute and pretty in the pictures, but it's just not going to work that way. So you need to keep that in mind with your conceptual design and coming up with a better way to handle this. And then another issue that was raised, and I don't think that it's been spoken about again, is the soil testing. I think I and a number of other people raised that at a few of the other meetings. I don't know if there was any independent testing done. I admit I don't know. I haven't had enough time to look. If it hasn't, I'd like to know why. If it hasn't, I'd like to know if and when it could be done. We all know that the bird, what do you call it? That the area right next to it had tons of contamination. And my concern is that once this project is being built, it will disrupt that land. And what effect, if any, would it have on the residents that would be moving in there, along with our water sources and the land close by? My other concern is also with sewer and water. It's very disturbing for me to ever hear somebody say that they're not okay with the current plan and that it's not, quote, ideal, but we're just going to live with it. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's a fair standard that any of us should be living with, nor should any of us be expected to live with. I don't believe in subpar. You know, you got to raise the bar and expect the best for all of the residents of Walpole. And there's no exception to that here. So we spent a lot of time discussing that area in the square, but I think you've come away, and I think I just needed to reiterate all the issues that have been raised and don't seem to be addressed. At the end of the day, this project is an unfriendly 40B. It's going to disrupt the entire neighborhood. It doesn't fit, and you guys know it. And when I say you guys, I'm talking about the developers and even our department heads. You all know that it doesn't belong here. And also in the future, I believe that if there's going to be ongoing meetings between department heads, with all due respect, I think invite some of the RTMs so we can speak about some of the concerns that we have. So we're all face to face to discuss it. And by face to face, nowadays I'm talking about Zoom meetings, because I'd be more than happy to attend. And I think that covers everything. Thank you.
Okay, so the last new hand raised, and then we have a couple people who have already spoken. But Krissa and John Casellas, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the board for hearing us again this evening. So my name is Krissa Casellas, and I live at 20 La Civita Drive. It's off of Winter Street. I've lived in Walpole for the past 19 years and am raising my family here. We lived on Washington Street, 1520 Washington Street, we lived there for 14 years until we built a new home. We wanted to get off of a very busy road. And what I've seen happening all around our area is every road seems to be busy unless you live at the end of a cul-de-sac like we do here. But we come out to Winter Street and we're still dealing with all of this traffic. So, but being on Washington Street, it was a huge concern when Gillette Stadium was being built. So I'm going to get back to that point in a minute, but I just want to say, you know, some of the concerns that we've had during this whole time is basically, you know, one is the size of this project. I mean, I don't want to, you know, reiterate on the fact that other people have said all of this, such as Rosemarie, Joanne, Becky, Erica, Julie as well. And, you know, the size of this project is really gigantic compared to what we are here in South Walpole. We are a small community, you know, community that really does pride that South Walpole, you know, green space that we have at the end, where we have the South Walpole sign. I mean, I can tell you honestly, my children who have all attended the Boyden Elementary School, one of their projects in 3rd grade is to put mums there in the fall. They plant them there. In the spring, they plant impatiens. And it is part of the Walpole Parks Department that does help us with all of that, but it is a school project. And where are these kids going to have this space anymore? I mean, it's just, to me, that's really sad. I mean, this is something that's been valued with the history of the Boyden School for years and years prior to my children even being there. We're talking at least 50 years. So the other things I just want to bring up is, you know, so the size of this project, I mean, it's really, really big. We're not looking for 300 units to be filling this space. I really had been hoping that, you know, we were going to be able to scale it back at some point. Also, the contamination of you know, we are part of a small group here called Safe South Walpole. And the reason why we're a part of this group is because we're very concerned as to where this is being built on. I know everyone says the soil testing has gone through. I don't feel like it was done extensively at all. And I'm very discouraged. with our town officials not to having to do more with that, knowingly that that was a contaminated site at one point. So then it brings up to the water sources, water resources, and concerns, you know, that we have with other housing developments that were also put into the Walpole area, such as the preserve. If they don't have the adequate water resources there, how do we think we're going to have it here? It's, you know, that's another one. The safety concerns are far and foremost for my children. And as well as myself, when I'm driving through that intersection all the time, I'm literally putting my life in my own hands every single time. There's people that have rolled into me. I'm sorry to say this, but I've been given the finger very often lately at someone who's literally crashed into the side of my car. And I have video and pictures of it as well. So safety is definitely a concern. My biggest part of where I wanted to, the reason why I spoke about living on Washington Street before was because I was a part of when they built Gillette Stadium. And when we lived there, my oldest, we moved there before we even had children. So I had a baby. And, we didn't have sidewalks, Mr. Hale. So just so that you guys understand too, the sidewalks were something that were put in. We didn't have those for all of these years. So my oldest one is 15 years old, and we haven't had the sidewalks for all that long going down Washington Street or in the South Walpole intersection as well. So those are new, and on Summer Street. But going down, when we lived on Washington Street, the impact of the trucks, the vehicles coming through our area when they were constructing Gillette Stadium was absolutely horrific, to the point where I couldn't even turn out of my driveway. It was literally truck after truck after truck, and all throughout the night. So think about this project being built where we are. Think about the safety concerns that we have, the traffic in that area, the safety of the South Walpole intersection. What are the measures that are going to be put in place when this is being constructed? How are we going to be able to even move through that intersection? How are we going to get from point A to point B and passing through there? I mean, we need to have another plan in place. We also need to downsize this project. Those are my my concerns. The safety entrance, the second entrance, that curve is the most dangerous curve soon I'm going to have another driver in our family. And that concern of having a second entrance in that area, as well as, having that traffic, is just horrific. So I appreciate the board hearing us. I appreciate, you've been here for us all along, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. But these are truly concerns of the people that live here. And I would really appreciate you listening to all of us. Thank you.
Okay, Charlie, so that's all the new hands that have been raised. We have 2 hands raised of people who have spoken earlier this evening.
Okay, and Ashley, we will take those, but we also have another hearing tonight. So for those people, please keep your comments to new materials or keep them short. Thank you.
Okay, so Bill Hamilton?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, very quickly, it was discussed earlier that this new project is going to offer some new low-income affordable units. Well, the preserve, which destroyed our aquifer so that we can't put wells down where the preserve is, has taken, after 15 years, because I saw the letter, to raise their affordable units to market rates. So the gift of affordable units is not really that attractive when it on an area that is so costly to our water supply. And it should be smaller. And what I really object to is they're using my taxpayer money to build this. And I find that very offensive. Thank you.
Okay, and the last hand is Rosemary.
Hi, Ashley, and thank you again, everybody, for staying on so late with all of this. I just wanted to reiterate Julie's I was so like focused on the traffic thing was the soil testing and the water testing. We have the opportunity to have an independent company look into this and have all of the residents sleep better at night, knowing that that area that Bird Factory was on was cleaned up and that that soil is not contaminated, the water's not contaminated, the stuff is not going to get into the only water source we have for the whole town. I know we had somebody look at the soil testing that was done, and from what they told me, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, the PCBs, they said, which is an industrial toxin, was not even tested. Again, I know that people in this area are frightened about it with the cancer rates. We've talked about that, the ALS diagnosis, all of it. I just hope that we can really make sure that we know in our heads and we can all sleep at night knowing that that soil testing and water testing was completely adequate and completely done right and efficiently, and that, 10, 15 years from now, we don't end up in an Aaron Brockovich movie. So I just wanted to reiterate what Julie said on that, because that is a huge concern to all of us. And I know that everybody in this area will be able to sleep better. And I think everybody that's involved in this project, to know that everything was done correctly and right, that there's not even a question that there could be contamination there, will sleep better at night as well. So thank you all again so much for everything.
Okay, those are the last of the hands that were raised.
Okay, thank you, Ashley, and so at this point, what I'd like to do is continue this out. We're going to have the town boards review the updated plans, and we'll take in the comments that people made this evening. We'll look at those. Mr. Hale, what are you looking at for a continuation?
So we tried to get a date, but it was hard to nail down all the schedules. So we need to know how much time Mr. Hale needs to get a plan set together, and then give the boards, I think 2 weeks to be able to review and give comment letters. So probably looking at, what is that? Sorry, my brain is a little fried. Like the first week of February, or the second week of February, somewhere in there.
And I know one of our board members can't make February 3rd, is it? Right. Wednesday, February 3rd.
That's right. Yep.
Can you make the following week? So that would be February 10th?
Yes, that would work for me.
Okay, other board members, thoughts on February 10th? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Hale, how's that work for you as far as getting a set of plans together? We can get them to the town boards for their review and then have their comments by February 10th.
So let me ask you what we talked about was adding some visitor spaces and making some relatively minor adjustments. I think that can be done so that you can see the impact of those in the next few days.
Okay, so Ashley, you and I talked about having a set of plans for the town departments to review. Do you want to?
So I think that, yeah, I mean, we need a plan set of record that covers all of the things. And I think that usually once you get to a point when the site plan and where the buildings are going, kind of these big picture issues, you can then move into a more robust set of plans. So I think, and I'm happy to talk after this to go into the specifics of that, but I think we need to see sections, elevations of the buildings. We need to understand, you know, how the building works, how the fire department's going to get down into. So we saw some sections tonight that haven't formally been submitted to the board yet. Just like a plan set that you would expect. And that should include, we've still not gotten a landscaping plan. We've still not gotten a lighting plan. I think you wanted to see additional details about parallel parking. So I think that would be appropriate.
I think, Ashley, if I may, this is Katie Enright through the chair. Mr. Lee, is it okay if I ask a question? I think what David's trying to get at is the parking spaces that we discussed tonight and adding additional visitor parking, it affects the location of essentially everything as we move forward with the detailed drawings. So we just want to make sure that the parking spaces that we're adding, the visitor spaces, are consistent with what the board wants and the fire department expects before we move forward with the full effort. We do want to get you all of these plans. We just don't want to go through the full effort. It's about 90 sheets at this point to have all of this done and then have it change again. So what I think David is asking is that we come before the board a little bit more quickly just to have that discussion and set you know, the edges of pavement so that we can move forward with the design efficiently.
Yeah, if there's availability to do that, I just don't. I know that January is a really tight month, and February, the first week, there wasn't any availability. We might be able to do, you know, like a work session.
Actually, I think there will be work. What I expect is there'll be work sessions with the town boards once they have the set of plans, and then we can move forward. We've got a full agenda with other projects coming to the zoning board for the rest of the month of January here. So I really think we need to get the plans from the applicant and get them out to the town boards, get the comments back, and then move forward with the meeting.
So just to be clear, so the plan would be for us to make some, put some visitor parking on there, get some feedback from the fire department, and then provide a final set of plans that you can vote on.
To get comments, so we need the other departments to give the board their final comments on what may be the final plan set. If having a workshop ahead of the meeting in February, maybe Cliff being there would be helpful. I know he got brought up earlier, to kind of talk through some of those details. We can certainly do that. So
doing things like on a 55-acre site, doing a landscape plan is thousands of dollars and a lot of time. And so setting the edge of pavement, which I think is a conversation between us and the fire department to get some feedback, and your Tetra Tech, your peer reviewer, would be very helpful. I think that can be done in a couple days, and then we'll go ahead and produce a final set of plans, and it is what it is.
And I'm fine with that, and I think the board's going to be okay with that. If we get the final set of plans, that's your final submittal, and we'll go from there as far as conditions. Amy Questle, any comments or anything else we should be looking at?
Not at this time. There's not much we can do until we have, some final plans that we can actually, work with. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one other, when the plans get to the final stage, we're going to need a list of, waivers that are going to need to be considered by the board. So that would be something that would be generated in parallel, I presume.
Yeah, we really can't get a complete list of waivers until they have their plan set. But yes, we will need that because we don't have one right now.
update the waivers to the extent they need to be updated, and give you a final set of plans. So I'll grant an extension until February 10th.
Okay, that's good. Does that work so that will work for the board, and thank you, Bob.
Can we make it February 11th for the extension? Just so
February 11th?
Yeah.
Wednesday,
We
February.
scheduled the hearing on the 10th, but just
Oh, okay.
the way the last year went and this year is going, I think having a little bit of
Yeah, Mr. Hale, that's just in case if we have a technical problem or a snow day or something weird that happens between now and, but we will have the hearing on the 10th.
Yeah, so, if there's a problem with that date, just reach out.
Okay.
It's not.
So, could I have a motion, actually, it's late. A motion to continue until, the hearing will be continued until the 10th.
of February at 7 p.m.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay. Second by Jane. Okay. Any further discussion? And don't anybody go anyplace. We still have another hearing to go tonight. Roll call vote. Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
I'm John Lee. Aye. Okay, so this is continued out until February 10th. And
Thank you all very much.
okay, thank you. And I think we're making progress. Okay. Okay, next up. Next we have case number 20-21, Wall Street Development, 48 Burns Avenue. This is a request for project change, amendments to comprehensive permit, and the issue for tonight is peer review. So, George, good evening. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Petrozzi, good evening. How are you?
Well, I'm tired, so you guys must be tired.
Yeah. So one of the things, really, we're here tonight to discuss the peer review. The zoning board voted to have Tetra Tech do the peer review, and I understand that's that's not what you wanted. You appealed to the selectmen, and they said that they disagreed with the appeal. And so when are we going to get the check here? And actually, do you want to bring us up to date on your chronology of where we are?
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to kind of give a summary of the events that have taken place kind of since November 18th, 2020, both for the board and the applicant, and for the public to kind of be up to date on what's happened. So November 18th, this hearing opened, and Mr. Petrozzi presented the proposal to the board. And if you remember, I did that overlay where I showed the changes and how the changes kind of are not just in one area, but really relating to the whole project. All the buildings have been moved, they've been enlarged and modified, setbacks have been reduced, there's been a new access into the site. So after that meeting, the board discussed requesting scopes for peer review. Mr. Petrozzi wanted us to get a scope from Beta, so we got a scope from both Tetra Tech and Beta. The hearing was continued until November 30th, 2020. 11/19, we got the scope of work. We requested the scopes of work, and on 11/24, we received the scope from Tetra Tech with an estimate of $13,624. And then on November 30th, the afternoon of the continued hearing, we received the scope of work from Beta for $7,500. So at that continued hearing, the board discussed the scopes of work, and the board was amenable to tabling a vote on the design peer review until we got this, the engineering peer review sorted. And, at that time, I noted that while the Beta proposal was less than Tetra Tech's scope, during the previous review, Beta required additional funds as we went through the process. And Mr. Petrosi was of the position that Beta should be the peer reviewer since they are who did the review last time. And he also noted that it was not about the money, but Beta's relative familiarity with the site. So then the ZBA discussed this. You talked about how major the changes were, how the changes kind of spanned the whole project, the new connection on Union Street that was near the river that was not part of the last project, and so on. I think Ms. Murphy noted that you preferred Tetra Tech because of the technical acumen demonstrated during the review on a different project, and Ms. Coffey agreed and noted that it would be beneficial to have a fresh set of eyes on the project. So that was kind of the last time this was before you. On the 30th, you deliberated and voted to approve Tetra Tech based on the benefits that you saw of working with that scope of work. On December 7th, Wall Street Development submitted a letter dated December 3rd, objecting to this. There are some assertions made in that letter that staff would dispute, mainly that the work is not duplicative. So then on December 10th, Wall Street submitted an appeal to the Walpole Board of Selectmen. The Walpole Board of Selectmen took this issue up on December 22nd, and at that hearing, they found that there was no conflict of interest and that Tetra Tech was, they did not find that Tetra Tech was unqualified. So they therefore voted to deny the request to overturn the ZBA's vote to use Tetra Tech as a peer reviewer. A letter to that effect was sent to the applicant on December 23rd. And then on December 28th, we received a letter from Wall Street Development that was addressed to the ZBA outlining the reasons why a check in the amount of $15,000 was provided to the board for Beta and not Tetra Tech to review the project. That letter selectively quotes town council's response to questions from the Board of Selectmen at their meeting. And the letter leaves out any discussion of the reasons why the ZBA cited a preference to have Tetra Tech be that peer reviewer. So just to clarify some of those comments, when I brought up the previous scope of work, it wasn't, it was merely meant to demonstrate that while there was a difference in the estimations, some consideration should be given that the previous experience with the initial quote from Beta was not sufficient for the whole review. So we had to go back and get more. I'll provide a lot of this to you in writing, but basically the scope of work for Tetra Tech is from a qualified, nationally known firm. There are no conflicts of interest. The scope of work is reasonable given the substantial changes to the proposed project. And Wall Street Development has provided the board with a check in excess of the funds that were requested. So the scope is not unreasonable or adding unnecessary time or cost to the applicant. In fact, I think Wall Street Development has inflicted a considerable loss of time in delaying by not providing the funds that you've requested. So the board, as of today, more than 14 days have passed since the Board of Selectmen voted to deny the appeal of the peer review selection, well in excess of the 7-day deadline in your comprehensive regulations. And to date, 37 days have passed since the ZBA vote for approval of the Tetra Tech scope of work. So the applicant still, as far as I know, has not provided the requested peer review funds for the selected peer reviewer. Thank you for hearing me on that.
So, and that's very helpful to give the chronology of what has happened. And please make sure Amy has a copy of that so that can be part of the exact details for the minutes. Okay, so Mr. Petrosi, do you have a check for the Tetra Tech peer review?
No, we're going to stick with our decision to have the original peer reviewer review the project. So if that's not acceptable to the board, I think we've made a good faith effort to cooperate with the board. Then we just assume have the Housing Appeals Committee adjudicate the decision. So, your call.
Okay, thank you for your input there. Mr. Pucci, what's your take on this for the town and for the zoning board?
Again, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. George Pucci from Town Council's office. Happy New Year, everybody, as well. You know, you're at the point, if the applicant does not want to agree to the peer reviewer that you've selected, you can do two options. You could either reconsider your selection and go with the applicant's preference, or however you want to characterize it, decision that he will only fund the beta review and will not agree to use the funds for Tetra Tech's review. You could either reconsider your selection of Tetra Tech, or in my opinion, you'd be within your grounds to close the hearing and schedule deliberations for a denial decision based on the applicant's failure to fund the selected peer reviewer, Tetra Tech. And I would note, you know, Ashley's recitation of everything is exactly accurate. There was an administrative appeal of your selection, which the applicant was entitled to do under the comprehensive permit regulations of the DHCD, as well as you have two alternatives. You can reconsider your selection and go with the applicant's insistence to go with beta, or you can stick to your original selection and consider a denial of the project change based on the failure to fund the selected peer review.
Okay, George, thank you for that guidance for the zoning board. So first off, board members, does anybody want to reconsider having beta do the peer review as opposed to Tetra Tech? Is that something that you see value in? You know, I'd consider it, but we've already considered it, and we've said that we feel that Tetra Tech is what we want for the peer review. Bob, your thoughts? Suzanne, anybody?
I don't want to reconsider.
No,
Sorry, go ahead, Bob, sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't think, I think it's fully within the purview of the board to choose which technical consultant is going to provide advice to the board, to select that entity and to agree on a reasonable scope of work. We cannot be in a position where an applicant is dictating to the board who we choose in that process. That's just, in my opinion, not workable, and it takes away the authority of the board to make that selection, since they are it's supposed to be an independent reviewer working for the benefit of the board. So I'm not inclined to reconsider our decision. I think it was reasonable given our experience with Tetra Tech. I think they're very capable. They've been very efficient and timely with their responses in previous projects. And I see, in light of the findings of the Board of Selectmen, that there is no conflict of interest. I see no reason for the board to reconsider.
Okay.
John?
Jane?
John, yeah. I would have to agree with that. I think we've been more than fair trying to work with Petrosi from the beginning. And I think enough is enough. I think we've done in good faith. We've tried to, and I think I agree with Bob. I think it's up to the zoning board, and I don't think we should be dictated by, because this sets a precedent that certainly would not be a good thing for the zoning board.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Drew?
Yeah, John, I just wanted to as well agree that I think that the project change is substantial enough, and we all agreed on that it needs to be reviewed entirely. I think taking the opinion of the prior peer review and trying to apply that to the current revised project is not adequate for the board's decision-making moving forward. And I think that it's necessary that we have Tetra Tech be the peer review that represents the board to review the plans and offer us guidance and opinion on our final vote.
Okay, thank you, Drew. So so that was the first thing, and clearly board members are not in favor of reconsidering. And so, George, the other option is to close the hearing, and that's not something that I'm used to doing without the applicant usually wanting to do it. So can you walk me through how do we correctly do this and legally do it to make sure that it's done right?
Right, thank you. And I'm reluctant to advise that you close the hearing as well. I'll remind the board, which you're already well aware of, you've already granted a permit for this property to this applicant. So it's not as though you've, treated the applicant unfairly or not acted in accordance with your obligations under 40B. And, I'd add as well, you had a 40B consultant on the initial approval from Mass Housing. And, Paul Paul Haverty, who's, a developer's attorney in 40B. And he gave you very good, sound advice, kind of side by side with town council. And you got very adequate technical advice. And you ended up with an approval with conditions of the original permit. With, again, the guidance of both town council and a consultant from the state, to provide you with technical assistance, who also happens to be a well-known and very capable 40B attorney, usually from the developer's side. So the applicant has not been treated unfairly. You then, acted timely on the notice of project change. You found a substantial change warranting a public hearing. That finding was consistent with Mass Housing's finding that this was a substantial change. Then you made a timely selection of a peer reviewer. You considered the applicant's objections to that. The applicant hasn't raised any objections about qualifications or conflict of interest to lead me, at least, to advise you that you made an error in your selection. It certainly was within your discretionary authority, the selection of Tetra Tech. So, my speech is over at this point, but my point is I am also very reluctant to advise you to close the hearing on a non-substantive basis and go ahead with a denial based on the failure to fund the peer review. It's a reluctant outcome, but it's an outcome that really is now being dictated to you by the applicant. So what I would recommend procedurally you do is to entertain a vote to close the public hearing, because you don't want to go forward with continued illusory public hearings either, because there's nothing substantive for you to discuss on this application unless and until that peer review is funded. So there's no reason to continue the public hearing any further. What I would recommend you do is entertain a vote to close the public hearing, schedule a next date for deliberations, and receive a draft denial decision based on the peer review issue for you to deliberate on an issue at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you for that guidance, George. Okay, at this point, could I have a motion to close the public hearing for case number 2021?
So moved.
Moved by Suzanne. You got to take yourself off mute, Jane.
Second.
Okay, second by Jane. Any further discussion on closing the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman?
So for closing the public hearing, we'll vote on that, and then we will vote on the time frame for deliberations and where we go next. Okay, so no further discussion on that from the board members. So could I, this has to be a roll call vote. Go across my screen. Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
And I'm John Lee, aye. So the case is closed, and now George will.
Yeah, what I would do, Mr. Chair, is I would take a motion to schedule deliberations and have a draft denial decision submitted to the board for them to deliberate on and issue at that next session.
Okay, and that can be at a regular meeting with the zoning board, because we're not going to have any public input.
Correct. It will be a public meeting, but you're closed. The hearing is closed. You can't take anything further on it.
Right.
George, could you remind me how many what our time dates are for doing that? I'm going to pull up the calendar.
Yeah, 40 days typically to issue the decision. I would do this reasonably expedited, though, if possible, if you could squeeze this into a meeting.
Like I know that the 20th, I think, is very full. Amy, is that right?
So, Amy,
Yeah,
what's the next meeting, the 20th?
Our next meeting is the 13th, actually, for Doobie Street.
Okay.
And that's a little soon as well, because you do want to give, I would imagine, Ashley may put a draft decision together.
I can't do it.
I want to look at it as well, obviously. So we'll want to have enough time for that, for you to have it, in advance of your meeting.
The 27th of January, we have Moose Hill on, but that's it.
Yeah. If George, does that give you enough time to draft and review and everything on that?
It gives me enough time, but I have a scheduling conflict on the 27th.
We do the 26th. Is that 25th of January?
Either of those work for me.
Either one for me too.
To be honest, I don't think there's a big back and forth discussion. I think once we have the draft decision, it goes relatively quickly. I'd rather just do it at a regular, previously scheduled hearing.
Yeah. I can jockey around that night too, John. I have a meeting that starts at 6. I don't know exactly when the part that I will be presenting on will be heard that night. So I could be done before your meeting, or I could kind of jockey back and forth depending on when you hear this.
Yeah, I don't see, we'll all have.
Yeah, you may not even need me. You may not even need me if I've seen,
I'd agree with that. So I'd rather keep it on a regularly scheduled meeting, so we can add it on either, what's the pleasure of the board members, the 20th or the 27th?
Either one works for me.
Okay.
My suggestion would be the 27th and put it sort of last on the agenda, to the extent that George is able to join us, later in the meeting. That might be beneficial, but.
Okay, so let's do that. The 27th will, Amy, will have it on the agenda. No more public comments. The case is closed, and we will discuss it and see where we're going to move from there. Okay. Anybody else have anything for the board?
I would take a vote on that.
I was just about to say we need to vote on that.
Okay. So,
I'll make a motion to have the next hearing at January 27th.
Deliberations.
Excuse me, I'll make a motion for deliberations on January 27th.
And I will say.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion for the deliberations on the 27th? Okay, No further discussion. Roll call vote. Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Drew Delaney. Didn't hear you, Drew.
Aye. Aye.
And I'm John Lee. Aye. Okay, good. So we'll have deliberations on that. The next thing we have is minutes review from December 21st, and I was able to.
Good night, John.
Okay. Good night, George.
Bye, George.
Bye. Thank you.
People disappeared quickly. So, let's see. Did we get those minutes, Ashley, the 21st? That was the May, that was.
You don't have the minutes of the 21st. You have the minutes of all of November
Yeah.
and the beginning of December, I believe.
Yeah, December 16th, that's the meeting that we had to continue because of technical problems. So that was real simple. Everything got continued on that. So I reviewed those. They were straightforward. Could I have a motion for the minutes on December 16th?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Jane. Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote on the minutes. Jane.
Aye.
Suzanne.
Murphy, aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
You have minutes from November 9th, November 18th, November 30th, and December 2nd.
Okay. I haven't.
I
They were all
haven't
sent.
reviewed any November.
I'm sure you sent them. I got to go back and review those. I'm looking at the agenda where it says, minutes to approve and minutes review. So we can do that. Please put those on for the next meeting, and I'll make sure that we knock those all off. Okay.
Sounds good.
Jim Johnson, are you there?
He's here. I've been texting him.
Yes.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. So you saw how that went. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I was surprised, to say the least.
And George was dragging his feet, giving him every opportunity to change. So I have no idea. So.
No, he's decided this is the path he wants to go down. So we'll just.
Okay. Well, I think it's well documented. Ashley, you've well documented it. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that was a good little timetable you did. That was good. I appreciate it.
Sorry I read it all. It was so long, but I felt like it was.
Oh, it was good. It was worth having everyone on the same page. It was good.
I agree with that. Ashley, you and Amy did a
Amy
fantastic.
added that to the website as well. So
Good. Okay.
I think you guys all did a great job tonight. A long night.
Yeah, long night. So okay.
I'm pooped.
Okay. Yeah.
How was your hoops?
I've never run a Zoom meeting in basketball.
Okay.
Thanks, you're lucky you got healthy kids.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So
moved.
Moved by Suzanne, second by Jane. And I don't think we need a roll call vote. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Murphy, aye.
can I vote?
What's that, Ashley?
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
It's only afternoon for Ashley.
Yeah.
All right.